Hello everyone and welcome. I am Adam Osborne from Kardec Group and I would like to welcome you all once again to another edition of SPIRITISMx, and this year's SPIRITISMx 2022 Views from the Beyond. So here we are, another year, another fourth edition of SPIRITISMx, and as always it's great to know that we've had so many people who've been supporting this event over the years. And it's been a very interesting year this year, hasn't it? So while most people have now adapted again to new routines and the new normal way of life, we have had a very eventful year. We've been shaken by the news of the invasion of the Ukraine, but celebrated their win at the Eurovision Song Contest. Monkeypox appeared, but was brought quickly under control. Here in the UK, we've swapped prime ministers more times than the number of goals scored by some countries at the World Cup. But of course, we have celebrated the Lionesses winning the Women's European Football Championships as well. In June, we celebrated Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee. But just 3 months later, we as a nation and as a planet mourned her parting, giving thanks to all she accomplished during her illuminating reign. And there has been an increase in people wanting to find out more about spirituality, alternative philosophies, and even an uptake in spiritualistic beliefs. And of course, part of that is that more people are accepting the idea of life after death and interested in hearing stories from the spiritual side of life, which leads us on to our event today. So, SPIRITISMx. What is it? Who is Kardec Group? And what can we expect from this event? Now, SPIRITISMx itself is a series of short and insightful talks looking at various aspects of life from a spiritist perspective, with Spiritism being the philosophy and science codified by Allan Kardec in the 1850s and 1860s. Spiritism itself is open to all people of all backgrounds, faiths, and beliefs. SPIRITISMx itself is an exchange of information. That's what the X means, exchange. Exchange of information, views, and personal stories, which can help us understand the various challenges and trials we go through during our multi-dimensional journeys. Now, all talks in SPIRITISMx are usually between 10 and 15 minutes and are based around a central theme. And the theme this year is Views from the Beyond, looking at messages and messengers who have bridged the gap to bring us beneficial and enlightening stories, descriptions and consolation, all received through written mediumship using psychography or automatic writing. But more about that in a moment. So, who is Kardec Group? Well, there we go. Kardec Group is a British spiritist organisation which runs two spiritist study groups. The Spiritist Society of Windsor and Maidenhead, which started in 2015, and the Spiritist Society of Bicester, which started in 2019. Both groups have public study meetings which are open to anyone to attend. And during our studies, we have open discussions to look at spiritist works, seeing how we can apply this vast knowledge to help us with our day-to-day lives and these journeys that we are all taking. The Spiritist Society of Windsor and Maidenhead meets on Saturday mornings, and from January we will have hybrid meetings with the option to meet face-to-face in Maidenhead, which isn't too far from London. And the Spiritist Society of Bicester meets on Wednesdays, and for the moment just online. We also have additional study groups such as an in-depth study of the Spirits book, as well as mediumship study groups. Now, Kardec Group also has other projects. As well as organising SPIRITISMx, we have our occasional podcast. There we go. Okay, our podcast Insightfully Speaking, where myself plus two co-hosts, Anne Sinclair and Humberto Schubert, talk with interesting guests to look at recent events from a spiritist perspective, which you can find on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, and many other locations. And if that wasn't enough, we have, as we are a registered charity here in the UK, we have some fundraising campaigns. we are coordinating an official project to produce professional translations of the psychological series of books from the spirit Joanna de Ângelis, bringing a new level of English versions to these books to the general public and for all those who can find both comfort and knowledge from these important books. We also have our High Five campaign, which was set up to purposefully support noble and dedicated community projects. I'll talk a bit more about these campaigns later on, but if you want to know more about Kardec Group as well as all our activities, just head to our website, which is www.kardec.org.uk. There is an issue with that graphic. I do apologise. That's supposed to be the Facebook, Instagram and YouTube symbols, which is where you could also follow us. You can just follow us at Kardec Group on social media, and always make sure that you like and subscribe as well. So, what do we have for you today? We have 8 short talks, and like I said, they're all based on the main theme of Views from the Beyond, which will be about spiritual authors who have brought us information and ideas that help us understand physical and spiritual life. We have with us today St. Louis, which will be presented by Sonia Araujo, François de Genève, presented by Karen Dittrich, Gabriel Delanne, presented by Dan Assisi, Elizabeth d'Esperance, presented by Humberto Schubert, Emmanuel, presented by Ingo Meyer, André Luiz, presented by Natasha Aragao, Camilo Cândido Botelho, presented by Edir Paixão, and Joanna de Ângelis, presented by Sinclair. That's the other slide for you, just so you can see their wonderful faces. Now, after all 8 talks, we will have a musical interlude. We will also have the chance for you to win a bundle of Spiritist books, and then we'll have a round table where our guests will give their further reflections about their authors and answer any questions that you, the audience, have. So let's say hello to some of the people. Well, can't actually see many of the people putting comments just yet, but if you do put comments in the chat, we'll try to say hello to you during the event. But we do have quite a few people watching with us online, so make sure you send us your comments, your questions, or feedback via the YouTube live chat, which should be on your side, or down below on the Facebook comments if you're watching via Facebook. And remember, we're only broadcasting on the Kardec Group channels this year. So let's get started with our talks. So first up, we have Sonia Araujo from Copenhagen in Denmark. Let's bring Sonia on screen. There we go, just to help get rid of the nerves that some of us have when we want to give our presentations. So Sonia has been living in Denmark for over 36 years and is the president of the Spiritist Foreningen Allan Kardec. She has proactively worked on the coordination and translation of Spiritist books into Danish, and for over 15 years has worked with the Brazilian painting medium Florencio Anton. Now today, Sonia will be talking about St. Louis, who had an important relationship with Allan Kardec. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll hand you over now to Sonia. Sonia, over to you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this event. And I have been studying Spiritism for many years here in Denmark, for more than 20 years. But it's new for me to participate in these online events. Well, first I would like to greet the people watching this marvelous program. Hello, good people. Hello, everybody. Well, as Adam said, I'm going to talk a little bit about St. Louis. And St. Louis was one of the spirits who had a very close relationship to Allan Kardec. He was the spirit guide of the Parisian Spiritist Association. This spirit, St. Louis, is supposed to be the spirit of the French king Louis IX, and also known as the Good King, who lived from 1214 to 1270. He started his reign still under the tutorship of his mother, because he was only 12 years old when he was crowned, as his father died. His mother was a very religious person. She attended the church very often, and she taught him how to keep his prayers and obey to God. So, since very early age, he was educated in having a faith and practicing charity. So he was a very pious man and a fair king, always concerned of the needs of his people. Justice was very important to him. The messages he brings into the Spiritist teachings are always of loving and encouraging nature. He has over 14 messages in the three main books of Allan Kardec, the Spirit's book, the Medium's book, and the Gospel according to Spiritism. And he has many other messages in the Spiritists magazines, which Allan Kardec used to publish monthly. I would like to share with you today two of St. Louis' messages, which I particularly like very much. And the first one, first I will show you here this slide. The first message is to find in chapter 31. And this message, it is directed to the Spiritist movement of that time, to the Spiritist societies. Here, Allan Kardec, in this chapter, Allan Kardec brings several dissertations from different spirits regarding the future of Spiritism and these Spiritist societies. The message number 6 in this chapter is from St. Louis. And what I like in this message, which you can see on the screen, is when he says, "Do not torment anyone by persistently trying to convert him or her." Oh, sorry, I have to go back. Especially guard yourselves against violating public opinion, whether, whether through simple words or public demonstration. The more modest you are, the more you will win the appreciation of others. And let no personal motive lead you to act, and you'll find within your conscience a force of attraction that produces only goodness. It's a beautiful message because it shows the essence of Spiritism, that this benevolence to others and this respect and tolerance towards other people and other religions, other beliefs, we have to wait. The seed has a right time to start to sprout and blossom and give fruit one day. So we should not hurry up or rush with anything. And so this is the beautiful of this message, that he says we should not try to convert anybody. Our belief in our hearts we keep for us, and with our actions we convince others much more than with our words. I have another message which I like very much from St. Louis, and it is to find in the Spirit's book, question number 1019. It's the last question in the book, and Allan Kardec asks St. Louis at this part. They are talking about the future of humanity, the future of the planet, and so on. And then Allan Kardec asks if there ever will be peace on earth. And these are the words which Allan Kardec asks with. Will the kingdom of the good ever be realized on earth? Will earth ever be a planet where we don't have to worry about violence, about injustice, or things like this? Well, the good king, St. Louis, he answers, the good will reign on earth when among the spirits who come to inhabit it, the good outnumber the evil ones. They will then enable love and justice, the source of goodness and of happiness, to reign on earth. So, based on this answer, we can see that this state of peace we all long for is something that will come, but it will come slowly because it has to follow with the incarnation of good spirits coming to live on earth. These spirits, when they are born, and others, when the others die, there occurs a change on the planet. The new spirits, they bring new desires, new ideas, new habits, and innovation. And this slowly changes the culture of the ideas on the moment on the planet. So it's important that we give these spirits opportunity to come, to be born on earth, to incarnate. And it's important to give education to the children arriving to the planet, so they from early age have this, or the possibilities to develop these moral qualities inside themselves, which they bring as seeds. So I think this message, this last one, is a very positive message, because it says that it's not the fate of the planet to remain like this, in this state. And if we look at what is happening today around us on our planet, with wars several places, with drug abuse almost everywhere, then sometimes we might tend to think that things are a little bit lost. But it's not so. It is changing. And if we compare with 1,000 years ago, then we will see things have changed already a lot. But with this change and the incarnation of more developed spirits, then comes also uh, uh, choices they have to make for themselves. And this test, we have to pass the test. And this is something that takes time. So sometimes we come and we incarnate, and we have this idea of doing something, and we may fail, but then we return and we are much stronger to to cope with the um, adverses we might find on our way. So, as a last word, I would like to leave here my greeting to all of you, and this very positive message that things will become better one day, and our children and our grandchildren will experience this beautiful world, which they will be part of building up. So, goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you for that very enlightening presentation. Okay, so I will put you backstage and we'll talk to you a little bit later on today. So thank you so much. There we go. So what do we have next for you all? I just need to bring my slides back on. Very sorry about that. So that was Sonia talking about St. Louis. Now, remember, please send your questions, your comments, your hellos, your whatever language you want via the YouTube live chat, which should be on the right-hand side of your screen if you're on the computer, or Facebook comments, which should be right below you. So just let us know who you are, where you are, because we'd love to know where everyone is from around the world. And we've got a few people already joining us from where do we have? We have a couple of people from Brazil, from the UK, from Slovakia as well. Well, thank you for joining us. And again, just to remind everyone, we will have 8 talks. We will then have a musical interlude. Then we'll have a prize draw, which we'll talk about in a little moment. We'll have the round table as well before we end. Now, next up, we have Karen Dittrich, who is in Brussels, Belgium. Let's bring Karen on the screen as well. Hello, Karen. So Karen is a member of the Centre for Spiritist Studies, Camilo Flammarion, in Brussels. And besides the studies and activities of that group, she loves translating Spiritist books and texts into her native German. And today, Karen will be talking about François de Genève, who provided an impactful message that was used in the Gospel according to Spiritism. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hand you now over to Karen. Karen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, Val, and thanks to all friends at Kardec Group who are organizing this very beautiful event. And hello to everybody. So I do have the pleasure and honor to present the spirit and spirit author François de Genève to you. And as Adam just mentioned, he's one of the advanced spirits who contributed to the Gospel according to Spiritism by Allan Kardec. And his impactful message that you just referred to, Adam, is you'll find that in the chapter 5 of the Gospel, chapter 5, which is called Blessed Are the Afflicted. And his message is entitled Melancholy. It was received through a medium in Bordeaux and signed by François de Genève. And the views that François de Genève presents from the beyond on melancholy are really a true treasure that I consider important for all of us. So let's get to know this wonderful author through his work. He starts his message by referring to what he considers melancholy, asking us, do you know why sometimes a vague sadness fills your heart, leading you to consider that life is bitter? So this vague sadness, which is also the definition of melancholy that we find in several dictionaries. So this vague sadness that maybe follows without any specific reason, be it for a shorter period of time, be it for days or longer even. But, you know, where you can't really explain what it is, what is going on, but something that weighs on you, or that may seem as if a cloud were hanging over your head, surrounding your head. You know, that vague sensation that makes you feel that life is bitter without any specific reason. And I imagine that many of us can relate to that and have experienced it at some stage in our lives. And to help us understand a bit better what is going on in that moment, in that situation, François de Genève explains the background from the spiritual point of view. So referring to this vague sadness, he says that this is because our spirit that aspires to happiness and liberty finds itself tied to this physical body that we're in, and that acts like a prison for the spirit, for our spirit. And our spirit becomes exhausted through vain efforts to seek release from this body, from the situation that it finds itself in. And then recognizing that these attempts are useless, our soul becomes discouraged. And as our body suffers the influence from our soul, we feel weary, apathetic, as he explains us, full of despondency, and it's then that we judge ourselves unhappy. And of course, melancholy may also have physiological aspects. For example, in the case of depression, obviously, that may be the case, and obviously those physiological aspects and causes need to be treated as well. But François de Genève's message sheds light on our spiritual nature in this context. And as we are spirits in our essence, this aspect is very relevant to understand it better. As we're aware, we are immortal spirits, and we are on our pathway of evolution. Currently, we are incarnate in this material body that may seem as a prison, as the author explains. But we are incarnate here as we have been many times before, and as we will be again in the future, until we reach a state of relative perfection where we do not need to incarnate anymore, right? But our true home is the spiritual world. And that's something we often don't remember. And for now, we are incarnate on a planet that corresponds to our state of development. And based on the law of cause and effect, we find exactly those circumstances that we need for our evolution. The necessary lessons that we need to learn, the opportunities to atone for past mistakes, and also to reconcile with those that we may have heard. And at our level of evolution, the state that we are in right now, these circumstances can be challenging and painful at times. And in addition, our spirit is tied to this dense body, to this prison that the author mentions. And yet at times our spirit may become tired of it, tired of feeling stuck in here or stuck with this material body, and long for a lighter, more harmonious environment, a different sphere that it remembers from the times in the spiritual world. And that we know that does exist. So the soul may become discouraged at times when realizing that for now we need to continue this current journey in a material body. And that's then when we may feel a bit weary or can't really explain why we can't just focus on all the positive and beautiful things that are out there and that life has to offer us. Now, while François de Genève understands the state perfectly, he also points out the consequences when we give in to this vague sadness. And he tells us, believe me when I tell you to resist these tendencies with all your strength, as they only weaken your willpower. Resist those tendencies with all your strength. And he clarifies, aspirations for a better life are inborn in all humanity, but do not seek them in this world. Of course, and as Sonia has just mentioned, we can contribute where we are to improve our conditions, but for now we are not living in those spheres that our spirit sometimes longs to be in. And here, François de Genève mentions something that makes all the difference when considering earthly life and the challenges that we need to go through, the pain, the sadness. He says this, now that God is sending his spirits to instruct you about the happiness he has reserved for you, wait with patience for the time when the liberating angel will come to help you break away from the ties that hold your spirit captive. The Spiritist teachings that the author refers to help us to understand this process better. Yes, we all want to progress as spirits, and we will progress. Our current earthly journey is a means for our evolution, and it offers us the experiences we need in order to progress. The advanced spirits teach us how important our life, our incarnation here on earth is, and that it is crucial to continue this journey until the end, when our time comes to return to the spiritual world that we sometimes miss so much. But François de Genève tells us to hold on while we are here and to be patient, to really pay attention to our state of mind, to our thoughts, to our emotions, and not to let our willpower weaken by giving in to this fake sadness. But he really encourages us to find the strength to stand up to it, because we are here for a reason. And he reminds us of it by saying, remember that during your exile here on earth, you have a mission to fulfill that you do not even suspect. You have a mission to fulfill that you do not even suspect. Be it dedicating yourself to your family or fulfilling the various obligations bestowed upon you by God. And this is for all of us. All of us have a mission to fulfill. I'm not talking about something huge. It is our personal mission As he mentions, be it our family, be it certain tasks. All of us have a mission to fulfill, and we all have a reason to be here. So we're not here by accident. And we are at the perfect place, in the perfect family, within the exact circumstances that offer us the necessary experiences to grow. And again, François de Genève encourages us by saying, if within the course of this exiled probation, so this is how he calls our pathway here on earth, if we feel about to collapse through anxiety, uneasiness, or tribulations, be strong and courageous enough to support these pressures. Stand up to them with resolution, for they will soon pass. They will soon pass. These are the only means by which you can reach those for whom you pine, and who, jubilant at seeing you once again, will hold out their hands towards you to guide you to regions inaccessible to earthly afflictions. Really being strong and courageous to support the challenges, the pain, because they soon will pass. We cannot highlight this enough. I think while I was suffering, or when we are suffering, sometimes the suffering may seem to us endless while we are in it. We may not be able to see the end, but it will pass. We will go through it, and we will overcome the challenges. And if we were able to elevate ourselves and look at life from the bird's perspective, being able to see our whole pathway that we have gone through so far, seeing the previous incarnations we have had, and understanding the need for our current circumstances, for our current challenges. And we would also see that our tests and sufferings that we need to go through are not meant to last forever, and that they will not last forever. And this is valid for any situation that may cause anxiety and suffering. If we take, for example, the example that when a loved one passes away, which depending on the situation, may be the most painful test that we need to go through, the most heartbreaking suffering that we can imagine. The Spiritist teachings give us the certainty that this separation is temporary, and that we do meet our loved ones again, and that life continues. And I find this so consoling, and it may help us coping indeed. And then by studying those teachings, we also realize that we can actually help our loved ones through prayer, and that often it is also them who help us while we are still incarnate. So the suffering will pass. Now, while striving to accept with courage all our challenges and everything that we cannot change, it is important, on the other hand, to see what we actually can do, why we are here, or what we can do wherever we are. So remembering the mission that the author mentions, and reflecting on the circumstances that we are in, and seeing what we can actually do in a positive way. Now, it's easy to talk about this, but how can we face those challenges? And something that the gospel teaches us a lot is a strong faith can help us to face our challenges. And you either have that strong faith, or you can build it. And the views from the beyond, the message by François de Genève and the Spiritist teachings in general, can help us to build such a strong faith, because these teachings are based on logic and reason. We come to understand our nature as immortal spirits. We understand why we are here, why we are suffering at times, and we also understand that we are right now preparing our future for everything we do. And as we read at the beginning, the very beginning of the Gospel according to Spiritism, unshakable faith is only that which can meet reason face to face in every human epoch. But to finalize, I would like to emphasize a very important detail related to this message. While François de Genève encourages us to stand up resolutely and to overcome this vague sadness, he does not say we need to do this on our own. Yes, he does offer us a perspective that makes a huge difference, and it is very consoling. Yet at times we may feel we cannot we just cannot cope, or we cannot resist this sadness on our own, and that they may need help to do so. And if that's the case, it is important to acknowledge that we need help. And this help is available on the 2 dimensions. So both on the physical that we are in right now, but also on the spiritual plane that we're also interacting with. On the spiritual dimension, through prayer, for example. And that can be a very simple prayer when we ask for help, for support, and just asking for the strength to face our challenges, to overcome them. And we know we are never alone, and that no prayer remains unanswered. And also very important, the help that we need to reach out to on the physical dimension, that is available as well. So because many of us do struggle at some point in our lives, feel that vague sadness that we heard about, and we may need help. And that's completely natural, and it's important to reach out for help when we need it. To talk to someone that we trust, or to reach out to physical, to professional help, or even to a helpline. So whatever may be available or may feel the most pragmatic way for anyone who needs help. So, but I'm also aware this is not easy. But François de Genève points out how important it is to hold on and to continue this journey that we're on with courage. And he also reminds us that happier moments are ahead, just as Sonia did before as well, because we are all here for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. A lot to think about regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, I'll put you backstage and we'll talk to you a little bit later on. So that was Karen with her talk about François de Genève. And before we go to our next talk, I want to let you know how you can enter our prize draw to win a bundle of Spiritist books. Yes, yet again, we are giving away a bundle of Spiritist books at our event, because friends of Kardec Group know that we like to help people to get books in their hands so that they can have the opportunity of reading and studying great works like the ones that we're going to be hearing about today. Now, to enter the prize draw and have a chance of winning some lovely books of your choice, all you have to do, it's very easy, is send us a donation during this event. Donate? Yes. Send us a donation. So, what you need to do is just go to our website, which is www.kardec.org.uk/donate. The address is there on the screen right now. And just choose from any of our 3 campaigns and submit your donation. It can be of any value, just £1 if you want. And the names of anyone who sends a successful donation by the end of the event or before the end of the event, their names will be put into a random draw, which will show on screen. So if you want to enter, please be aware your name will be shown on screen. So just again, the website is www.kardec.org.uk/donate. And that's the website that you'll see when you go there. You just choose from either our High Five campaign, the Joanna G. Ângelis campaign, or even just a general donation to Kardec Group, because yes, we have costs that we need to cover. So, like I said, we'll just choose a name at random at the end of the event, just before the round table, so make sure you stick around until the very end. Right, let's carry on with the talks. The third talk of our event is with Dan Assisi from Southern California, USA. Now, Dan is an award-winning author and international speaker who has spoken at numerous events, bringing out a mix of deep thinking and humour to his talks. Today, Dan will be talking about Gabriel Delanne, who played an important role alongside Léon Denis after the passing of Allan Kardec. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Dan with his talk.
I'm Dan Assisi, and I'm glad to have a couple of minutes of your time to revisit an important personality to Spiritism's history. I am talking about François-Marie Gabriel Delanne, whom we affectionately know as Gabriel Delanne. Delanne was an early exponent of Spiritism and played a significant role in advancing Spiritism along with Léon Denis after Kardec's passing. So to read Gabriel Delanne is, in many ways, to go back to the origins of Spiritism and to see how it grew from the ideas brought forth to Kardec to a vast body of knowledge that it is today. And why do I say that? I say that because Delanne's contribution to us today is that of science, of bringing science together. If Léon Denis brought forth the philosophical aspect of Spiritism in very poetic ways, giving continuity to the work of Allan Kardec, Gabriel Delanne did the same thing at the same time, but in different ways. He did it through science. Gabriel Delanne's work, which remains vastly underappreciated and unknown in the English-speaking world, takes us to an exploration of the psychic phenomena of his time and exposes us to a line of thinking that is rational, wise, and straight to the point. It is truly fascinating to read so much of Delanne and see how, in many ways, he has foreshadowed a lot of the research that still goes on today. But you see, I hope that you feel motivated enough to dive into one of his many books, some of which have not yet been translated into English. His list of works is vast, but we only have 2 different books translated into English, one called Reincarnation, talking about the evidence for reincarnation, and the other one talking about the evidence for future lives, also reincarnation. Both of those are hard to find sometimes, but worth a read. And we hope that you may feel the urge to revisit this interesting figure that was such an important part of early Spiritism. And maybe to help in your quest to better get to know Delanne, we should tell you a little bit about his life before we read a passage that may be emblematic of the work he does and of his great thinking. Sometimes it helps to have a little bit of a writer's life in our view so that we can better connect the dots and see if that which he wrote really was exemplified in his life. And in Gabriel Delanne's case, that is absolutely true. You see, Delanne brings us a different perspective, one that was rare at the time and still is rare today, because it does not satisfy itself just with the phenomena. He has to understand why that is taking place. Delanne's life is one in which he continuously searches for meaning, even though he has already been satisfied with the fact the phenomena happens. And in that, it is a lesson for us not to be satisfied just with witnessing things, but to also seek to study and understand it and help others along the way as well. Delanne's life is a curious one because he was born to a family that was already Spiritist, a rarity in those times, especially as he was born in the year that the Spirit's book was first published, 1857. His father, Alexander Delanne, was a friend of Kardec and often traveled to speak to others about the beauties of Spiritism. And his mother was a great medium who had also contributed many messages to Kardec's work, including the codification. So little Gabriel grew up in a family that had already accepted and was actively engaged in the sharing of Spiritist messages. So it is surprising in a way that he chose a scientific way. He became an electric engineer, and throughout his life, he brought forth this desire to continually research and collaborate with other researchers who were investigating psychic phenomena, such as the great Charles Richet, who studied many of the materialization cases and so forth. And he was so dedicated to the cause that nothing could stop him, not even his illnesses. He was partially blind from early on, and eventually he developed a paralysis of the legs that saw him use a wheelchair, but none of that took him away of the work that he thought more important. As a speaker, as an active participant in the Spiritist movement, as the editor of a newspaper called The Spiritism, which, interestingly enough, was financially supported at first by Elizabeth Desperance, a famous medium, English medium, that many of you may know about. So there are many interesting circumstances in his lives that lead him to continuously talk about Spiritism and make this bridge between science and spirituality. Well, we could tell you a couple more things about Delanne, but I think that your time will be better spent reading his work. Again, if you are fascinated by the history of Spiritism, there is yet another reason to read Delanne, because along with Leon Denis, as we said, he was one of those who advanced Spiritism after Allan Kardec's passing. And if you want to round your understanding of Spiritism, as you have read Denis, and you can now read Delanne, it might be worth a couple of hours of your time to search for one of those books, Evidence for a Future Life or Reincarnation, to dive deeper into his work. And as a matter of fact, to give you a little bit of taste of what it is to read Delanne, and we hope that this will help your appetite grow, I want to share with you an interesting passage in which he talks about the coming together of science and religion or spirituality, and how those things are not mutually exclusive at all. And as a matter of fact, science will continue to explain things in many different ways. So, in his work, Evidence for a Future Light, he tells us, the existence of an ethereal substance is not incompatible with our actual knowledge of matter and energy. Such an attempt is not too audacious, since positive science, that is, experimental science, is touching this domain of imponderable forces, which doubtless holds in reserve many surprises. We venture to say, then, that we hold in our grasp the means of solving the great problems of our destiny. What a fascinating and beautifully put approach to saying that science will evermore get closer to the things of the spirit by understanding that the forces that are at play will, physically speaking, will explain to us how all of this comes together in many different ways. This is a predecessor to quantum physics, to the understanding of how the atoms work and how they are related to spirituality in general, and how more and more we see smaller particles being discovered in our physical world that basically stop being matter and become forces, become energy. So all that which he has been talking about for quite some time now through his work is even more relevant nowadays. So I will stop talking now and hope that you will have a time and the opportunity to visit some of the work of this incredible figure to whom today we pay homage and are grateful for, because at the end of the day, the beauty of Spiritism is that it allows us to see many different topics from different perspectives, to have many different views and many opinions come together to explain the world as it is, both in its physical and in its spiritual manifestation. And so I hope that you will remember Gabriel Delanne in your studies and make an effort and celebrate the scientific aspect of Spiritism and how it can explain and bring to us a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding that substantiate that which we already know, and that Delanne also knew, that by understanding the universe, we know that there is one creator that created all of us, and that we all start at the same place and we all end together as immortal spirits. And what a beautiful thing it will be, as he himself said, the day that we realize that and become kinder to each other and are able to forge a better society for all of us. So today, we pay homage to Gabriel Delanne and hope that you may visit some of his work, because it will certainly add to your life as well. I hope you have a great day and enjoy Gabriel Delanne.
Thank you so much, Dan, for that wonderful talk. And yes, Elizabeth Desperance will be talked about in just a few moments with Humberto. But before that, we just want to also again, just say hello to everyone who's watching and talk again about our campaigns, because a couple of people sent us a quick message asking to know a bit more. So we have Here we go. So many of you know that Kardec Group has our High Five campaign, which was set up to help some social projects in Brazil. Now, this campaign started in 2020 and is continuous, so your support is still needed. But what is this campaign? Who does it help? And how can you support it? Well, Grupo Espírita Sheila, run by Florencio Anton, is a non-profit organization which supports the poor community of Mussurunga in Salvador, Brazil. This organization works to provide educational and social care, food bundles, baby boxes, and housing to people who can't get support from anywhere else. Now, during the pandemic, the needs have been higher and obviously the resources have been lower. And now, even coming out of the pandemic, they're still in need of our support. Now, Florencio and his team work tirelessly to support this community, and it's only right that we help them too. And as you can see, you've got a couple of images on screen showing the baskets of goods that they give to the expecting mothers, the educational support programs for the kids, where they take them to places where they can learn good skills such as cookery, giving the equivalent of a McDonald's Happy Meal to kids, their own McShayla Happy Meal. It costs money to take kids to a fast food place, so they've done it themselves. And of course, you can also see the bundle of food baskets that they give. These, many places have this nowadays. Many countries have this, but obviously in the regions where we're talking about, they are under a lot of poverty. So at Kardec Group, we want to do as much as possible to help. So can you spare 20, 10 or even £5, like the people who are already starting to send donations during the event? Because that's all it takes. If everyone were to donate a small amount every month to this cause, which we know that some people are struggling with right now, but just £1 or £2 a month really helps. But if you can go to £5, £10 or even £20, that's brilliant. If everyone were to support a cause like this, then this group can make sure that the children are off the streets and in safe activities, that families can put food on their plates, and that people have secure homes to live in. So please come and give us a high five. All you need to do is go to www.kardec.org.uk/high5. It's there on the screen for you, and you'll see that page where you can choose the amount that you want to donate, as well as learn a bit more about the campaign and the group that we are supporting. And of course, 100% of the donations sent for this campaign go to this campaign only. We are a registered charity in the UK. We have fundraising regulations that we need to try to adhere to. So if it's sent for a campaign, the money will go only to that campaign. And of course, if you are in Brazil, please try to contact the group themselves, and you can donate directly to them. You can look at their Facebook and Instagram posts for these details. And of course, thank you to everyone who has been supporting this campaign and everyone who's considering to support it. And again, you can always find out more about all the campaigns that we have on our website, www.kardec.org.uk, and on our social media at Kardec Group on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And of course, remember that if you want to win a bundle of Spiritist books, all you need to do is just send us a donation during the event, like one or two people are already doing. So we may have to say congratulations quite early if other people don't send donations. So please, come on, just £1. That's all you need to do. It's not exploitation, friends. It is for good causes. It's all for good causes. I promise we're not going to spend it just on chocolate. So, the next talk that we have today is going to be with Humberto Schubert from Juiz de Fora in Minas Gerais, Brazil. Let's bring Humberto on screen. Hello, my friend. So
it's great to. Sorry.
No. So we have a delay issue with Humberto today, so it's not a problem. So, Humberto is a professor of modern philosophy and metaphysics at the Federal University of Juiz de Fora. He is the author of books and articles about various subjects. He holds a permanent chair at the Brazilian Academy of Philosophy and is associated to many academic research groups in Brazil and Portugal. And Humberto is also one of my co-hosts on the Insightfully Speaking podcast. So, today, Humberto will be talking about Elizabeth d'Esperance, who Dan mentioned a moment ago, who was an important British medium. So, Humberto, ladies and gentlemen, I'll hand you over to Humberto. Humberto, over to you.
Greetings, Adam. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I dare to speak about one of the greatest, if not the greatest, British medium to a British audience. So I am humbled before this challenge. And Madame Elizabeth d'Esperance was actually a very extraordinary medium from two different points of view. From the point of view of the evidence she produced, she was a prolific medium in terms of evidence produced for scientific investigation. And she was also a very competent writer herself, which was rare at the time for women. So she wrote some very interesting books that are also evidence and manifest a strong spiritualistic view of life in a time when most authors were men. Pretty much all authors were men at the time. So while she produced very, very strong evidence for mediumship and for the possibility of contact with an afterlife, she was involved in the main controversy in the life of all mediums, namely an accusation of fraud, and being accused of fraud a couple times. She had to endure some bitterness, some hardships in her life. I will try to defend her, to make a case in favor of Elizabeth d'Esperance, because first, her writings are a strong evidence that she was very strongly persuaded spiritualist, a very religious person. Secondly, she was tested by many great scientists of the time. I have a list here to remember everyone. The great physicist Friedrich Zollner, Professor Fries, Professor Aksakov, one of the most important names in psychic research and paranormal research in the 19th century, and Professor Butlerov in the Imperial Academy of Sciences in St. Petersburg. All of these remarkable scientists tested Elizabeth for several sessions. Some of them, like Fries, tested her for months without pause, without much rest, and they were persuaded that she produced legitimate phenomena, and this phenomena could not be faked in any way, not physically and not through suggestion or psychological suggestion. That was an alternative at the time. Some people believed that mediums could hypnotize or mesmerize people in order to believe they were producing materializations of spirits and communications and movements of objects and so on. But anyway, it is very relevant that spiritualists are more used to the hypothesis of fraud in any possible phenomena regarding any possible medium. It is not rational to believe that any medium be it from the 19th century, be it a great medium of our times, is immune to fraud or could not produce fraud unconsciously, consciously, or through the suggestion or induction of a third person. Well, so the possibility of fraud is something that we have to consider, because spiritualism is not a scientific fact. It is a philosophy. It is an interpretation of life. So this philosophy is based in modern spiritualism and spiritism, is based on facts, on the scientific investigation. But the scientific investigation can only provide certain persuasive capacity linked to a given body of evidence. So science produces evidence, collects and describes evidence, and what you conclude or infer from the evidence, that's philosophy. That's the interpretation we give to the facts. So according to materialistic philosophy, which is pretty strong nowadays, especially in an academy and in the media, among journalists and politicians, we could say that many people are persuaded that there is no possibility of any spiritualistic or paranormal or psychic phenomena being produced in any sense. So this belief, this philosophy, is heavily grounded on the fact that many mediums, most mediums, especially the most extraordinary mediums in 19th century, were actually caught committing fraud. So this is a brutal fact that is analyzed by the spiritualists of the time, including Allan Kardec. Allan Kardec spoke much about fraud in the Book of Mediums, and he accepted that a very large number of phenomena were actually faked and produced or forged somehow. Now, while it is conceivable that Elizabeth d'Espérance committed fraud, and it is also conceivable that someone related to her, someone close to her, committed fraud, it is also conceivable that she was not committing fraud all the time. That was the case of many mediums at that time, that they could not produce phenomena naturally. They would fake it somehow in order to please the audience, or in order to sell themselves, or to appear to be more extraordinary mediums, unfailable mediums, or something like that. Well, it is also conceivable, if the phenomena are as persuasive enough to convince many scientists of the time that she was not faking it, it is also conceivable that she was not committing fraud, or that she did not commit fraud. One of the strongest suspicions about this frauding, this act of frauding phenomena, has respect with the spiritual photographies, the photographies of materialized spirits. Some of them are very obviously fake pictures. They are edited by someone competent enough to make a vague figure of a human person appear in the picture. And we have to ask ourselves, how is it that many people believed these pictures at the time? And I'm not also saying that all pictures are faked, but certainly some were edited and faked. But how is it that even scientists believe that? Even intellectuals and very bright, intelligent people such as Arthur Conan Doyle believed in faked spiritual pictures. Well, we have to remember that there was no cinema at the time. There was almost no knowledge about photography, actually, and people had very, very few experience with the edition of photographies. So they were not prepared. They had no defense against this trickery. So it is even possible and conceivable that at a seance where some phenomena appeared very vaguely or not appeared at all, people were presented later with a photograph from the seance a couple of weeks later, and this photograph could be manipulated in order to convince people that the machine could capture something that the human eye could not. And that was a common excuse at the time that convinced many naive people who were not used to photography or to this manipulation of photographies, that these photographs were legitimate. So why is it hard to believe that all of the phenomena were based on fraud? Well, first, because Elizabeth d'Esperance came from a rich family, or at least a comfortable family financially, and throughout her mediumistic activity, she only impoverished. she only got poorer and poorer. So she would be extremely incompetent as someone trying to make a living from mediumship. The second argument I would like to present is that these great scientists, they tested her in presence, so they could check if something was happening or not. And some researchers, such as Alexander Aksakov, actually said, well, we presence something, some things very, very remarkable at these seances. For example, he reports that once he realized that the members, the legs of the medium were lost. They disappeared throughout the seance. Well, that's very difficult to forge or to fake, probably. We would have to consider that all these people were mad, or they are in a scheme, in a very large conspiracy, maculating their very respectable names and so on. Well, the third argument is that Elizabeth d'Esperance seems to be a very moral person. She seems to be a person committed to the spiritual life, not to the material life. Doesn't seem to be a person that is attached to material things or financial gain, or even to reputation or fame. And on the contrary, seems to be a very moral person, very spiritual in the sense of a religious person, guided by a vision of her mission in life, her divine place in life. Well, I will end with some remarks from her book that I believe help us understanding the true nature of her convictions, their beliefs. Well, it is an experience that we could call ecstatic, or a projection of the soul to a spiritual world, pretty much like the Apostle Paul's travel to the spiritual world. And she says, the light of this great life penetrated me, and I understood that thoughts were the only real, tangible substances, pretty Platonic, And while between my friend and me, utterance was no needed. The secrets of life and death were unveiled, and the meaning became plain. The reason of sin and suffering, the everlasting struggle towards perfection, were evident. How each atom of life had its appointed place into which it fitted as no other atom could. So this is a strong vision of an order and a plan in life that gives purpose to every individual and every individual people, and even to every individual being, such as atoms and so. How each change and evolution brought it nearer to its goal. As desire arose within me, I found the means of grasping it. Knowledge was mine. I had only to desire, and it was in my grasp. And I had dared to doubt, dared to question the power of God, nay, his very existence. I had presumed the question, the fact of spiritual life. I had blindly called the dark, shadowy confines of earthly existence the real life. I stood with my friend, overcome with this new sense of reality, this wonderful truth. I saw other beings, living, radiant creatures, and felt humbled and ashamed of my own inferiority. Yet my soul went out to them in love, friendship, and adoration. Well, the entire book has a similar tone, and we can see that Lady d'Espérance was probably much more a mystic than a person interested in any cultural or personal gain or in advancing any sort of ideology. And it is likely that interpreting her in this lens is more revealing of the interpreter than of herself. So I hope you enjoy the Shadowland, her book, and find them equally enlightening about the spiritual world, and also about this very strong commitment to the revelation of the spiritual world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Humberto. That's really interesting. I think I've got quite a few things that we can talk about in the round table there. Right, I'll put you backstage and we'll talk to you again a little bit later on. So, let's carry on with things, and our next talk today is going to be with Ingo Meyer. And now, just before we talk about that, full start, ladies and gentlemen. Just to say thank you to everyone who is sending their hellos and comments. Please let us know where you're watching us from, and remember, please send your donations during the event for you to be able to enter our prize draw. Okay, if you look in the comments and chat, the links are in there, so please go and just send a little donation and you'll be entered into the prize draw with a chance to win a selection of Spiritist books, a little bundle. Right, let's carry on, because we're now halfway through the set of talks. So now we can bring on Ingo. So Ingo Meyer is from Munich, Germany. Oh, now we've brought on Ingo. Okay, third
Hello.
time lucky. So the fifth talk of our event is with Ingo Meyer from Munich in Germany. Now, Ingo has been studying Spiritism for over 10 years and runs a Spiritist group in Munich called Weg der Nächstenliebe, which means Path of Charity. And today, Ingo will be talking about the spirit Emmanuel, the guide of Brazilian medium Chico Xavier. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Ingo with his talk. Ingo, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. And yeah, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And well, thanks for having me and for the invitation and the honor to introduce Emmanuel to you. So as Adam said already, Emmanuel is the name of the spirit who guided the mediumistic activity of Francisco Cândido Xavier, the greatest psychographic medium of all times. At the beginning of Chico's mediumistic activity in 1930, still without revealing himself, Emmanuel told him that he would like to work with him for many, many years, but that he needed 3 conditions for this: discipline, discipline, and discipline. And well, we know Chico ended his life with more than 400 psychographic works. And I think without discipline, that would never have been possible. And Emmanuel was the author of a few dozens where he himself dictated the content, where he was the author of the content. And as it's really a large work, I would like to touch in the following 5 different areas. And the first one is the letter about Jesus. And this is a work which he did not communicate through Chico, but which he wrote himself in one of the incarnations. Because at the time Jesus walked on the earth, Emmanuel's name was Publius Lentulus Cornelius, and he was incarnated as a Roman senator. It is known that he was the only authority who gave a perfect description of the Master Jesus through this famous letter, which I'm going to read at least part of it in a few minutes. Chico, or Publius Lentulus Cornelius, met Jesus personally and asked him to help him heal his daughter Flavia, who we assume was a leper. Emmanuel died in 79 in Pompeii as a victim of the lava Vesuvius. Well, and now I would like to quote from this letter. The letter is titled Letter from the Senator Publius Lentulus to the Emperor Tiberius Caesar, in which he describes the moral and physical qualities of Jesus. Since I know that you want to know what I'm going to tell you, there is a man in our time who lives by great virtues and is called Jesus. He is praised by the people as a prophet of truth, and his disciples say he is the Son of God, the creator of heaven and earth and all the things that are and were in them. He raiseth the dead, healeth the sick. In a word, he is a man of handsome form and very beautiful appearance, and his face is so majestic that all who see him are compelled to love or fear him. His hair is of a very ripe almond color. It is spread to his ears, and from his ears to his shoulder blades it is the color of earth, but more shimmering. He has a parting line between the hairs in the middle of his forehead, as is usual with the Nazarenes. His face is full, the look is very serene. There are no wrinkles or spots in his face. It is of a moderate color. His nose and mouth are immaculate. His beard is thick, but similar to his hair, not very long, but parted in the middle. His look is very loving and serious. His eyes are expressive and clear, which is surprising that they shine in his face like the rays of the sun. But no one can stare at his countenance, for when it shines, it frightens, and when it softens, it makes one weep. It makes one laugh or rejoice with seriousness. So far this letter. it's ending with your most devoted and faithful Publius Lentulus, President of Judea Lindizione. Well, then the second area I would like to touch is a series of 5 books about the emergence of Christianity. So when you look at the incarnation of Publius Lentulus at the time of Jesus, then 50 years later, Emmanuel was to be reborn as a Jew in Greece, in Ephesus, no longer under the toga of the proud Roman senator, but now in the woods of the humble slave Nestorius, who in his old age attended the secret meetings of Christians in the catacombs of Rome. We can know the story of this period better through his books. So the one where Emmanuel was Publius Lentulus is called 2000 years ago. And the one where he is the slave Nestorius is called 50 years later. And both books are unique masterpieces of mediumistic but also historical literature. And in addition to these two, there are several others, some which I highlight here. There's Paul and Stephen, a work which would alone justify the medial mission of Chico Xavier. The next title, Heil Christ and Renunciation. And these 5 books help us to understand the emergence of Christianity and its gradual historical distortion. Moreover, these 5 books are based on true historical facts, and they are all available in English language. And out of these 5 books, let me talk a little bit more about Paul and Stephen, which I consider as probably the most important work. So the book Paul and Stephen tells us about Paul of Tarsus, a fanatical Pharisee and a ruthless persecutor of Christians and the newborn Christian teaching, but also about being predestined by the divine choice who converted upon receiving the gift of apparition of Jesus in a glorious vision at the gates of Damascus. The book shows the reader the greatness of Paul of Tarsus, a courageous, daring, and sincere man who repented for his radical posture that culminated in the stoning of Christianity's first martyr, Stephen, and who humbly understood the accelerated revision of his ideas in answer to Jesus' call. Amid persecutions, infirmities, mockery, disillusionments, desertions by friends, stonings, beatings, and imprisonments, Paul of Tarsus transformed his life into an example of labor through dozens of years of struggle by founding churches and rendering them assistance. Well, a third area is Emmanuel's work in the Gospel according to Spiritism. So Emmanuel was also part of the phalanx of the Spirit of Truth that brought restored Christianity to earth. His definition of Spiritist teaching. When you read the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 11, item 11, that's where Allan Kardec included him. And the message is titled The Egoism. And let me quote, "Egoism, a plague of humanity, should disappear from the earth, for it hinders its moral development. Spiritism has a task of promoting the earth to a higher developed world. Egoism is therefore the target against which all true believers should direct all their courage and strength. I say courage because each one needs much more of it to triumph over himself than over others. Let each one therefore direct all his efforts to combat egoism in himself, in the certainty that he is the monstrous destroyer of all intelligences, the son of pride and the cause of all the misery of humanity. It is the negation of charity and thus the great obstacle to man's happiness. Yeah, and I invite you to further read, as said, chapter 11, item 11. Coming to the fourth part of Emmanuel's work, his work as the fifth evangelist. Emmanuel is also considered as the fifth evangelist through the superior interpretation of Jesus' thought. For this, it is sufficient to analyze the following books of his authorship through the mediation of Chico, and I think all of them are also available in English. The first one is called The Way, the Truth, and the Life. The second one, Our Daily Bread. The third, Vineyard of Light. And the last one, Living Spring. Well, and then the fifth area is, well, there are many others, and therefore it's also necessary to register at least some of the valuable works. One is called On the Way to the Light, which tells us the history of civilization in the light of Spiritism. And this is for sure available in English. The second one is called Emmanuel, a book consisting of several important dissertations on science, religion, and philosophy that concern humanity. Well, and with this, I will end my introduction of this wonderful and very important spirit, Emmanuel, and his works. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ingo, for that very, very precise introduction to Emmanuel and all the incarnations that were important for him. So we'll put you backstage again now, and actually before that, we've had someone send a message via YouTube, Marina, who perhaps will talk about it backstage, and we can give an answer. But she wants to know about Spiritist groups in her region in Germany. But Marina will try to send you a message via the chat, or maybe a contact for Ingo. Okay, but Ingo will put you backstage, and we'll talk to you in a little bit. Thank you.
Yes, see you.
Right, so I do apologise. It is that time of the year where we have sore throats and things. So where we're going to go, we wanted just to remind you all about the prize draw that we are doing. So again, your chance to win a bundle of Spiritist books. A small bundle, but it's still a bundle of Spiritist books of your choice. All you have to do is send us a donation during the event for your chance to win. Just go to www.kardec.org.uk/donate, choose any one of our campaigns. There we go. You can choose from any of the 3 campaigns, send any donation, and as long as it is a successful and completed donation before our round table, your name will be entered for the prize draw. So please remember to do that. All these donations are very, very beneficial for us. We've already spoken about the High Five campaign, which supports this wonderful group in Salvador, Bahia. Please, please, please help. They are obviously doing their Christmas campaign right now. You know, Christmas is only a few moments away from us. They have extra things that they want to give to people, so please come and help this wonderful campaign. We also have our Joanna Ângelis translation project campaign, which we'll talk about in a few moments. And you know, you can always help us here at Kardec Group. You know, we obviously have our running costs as well, but please try to support our other campaigns because they are really worthwhile. If it's just £10, £20, £5, £1, anything will be highly beneficial. So again, www.kardec.org.uk/donate. Okay, and now we are going to carry on, and our next talk is with Natasha Aragao from Oxford in the UK. Let's bring Natasha on screen. Right, Natasha is an environment consultant who has lived in several countries before coming to the UK. She has been involved with Spiritist activities for over 20 years and has been part of the Oxford Spiritist Study Group since 2011. Today, Natasha will be talking about André Luiz, a spirit who brought us some very insightful books. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will leave you now with Natasha. And Natasha, you are on mute, just so you know.
Hello, everybody. Well, thank you so much, Adam, and thank you so much for the Kardec Spirits Group for inviting me for taking this talk today. So this is very challenging. I'm going to be trying to talk about André Luiz, and as some of you might know about him, and some of you might not, but he's a very, very interesting author who has written lots and lots of books. So I have to be very brief about the talk today. And I'm going to be focusing on one of his books, which is the book called In the Greater World. For some of you who know André Luiz was actually a doctor and who lived in Brazil in the early 1900s. Now, he was a true skeptic of life in itself, and he was quite surprised and shocked when he realized when he died that life carries on and he didn't really end up either in hell or heaven. So this shock of him, as time goes by, he goes through lots of experiences and teachings inside of the spiritual realm, and that leads him to a better understanding, not only a better understanding of himself, but better understanding of life and its meanings. So his experiences, his self-reflections, this afterlife that he experienced, they are narrated in very, very beautiful books. He wrote 12 non-fictional novels, and they were all psychographed by the Brazilian medium Chico Xavier. And these books, they truly awaken in the readers this idea of what is the spirit life? What are the interactions between the spirit world and the material world? Now, as I said, those 12 books, the first one was Astral City, published in 1944, or Nosso Lar, how we say it in Portuguese. And in Nosso Lar, it's the first book of the series. We get to know André Luiz. We get to understand who he was before disincarnating and what was it that happened after he left his body. What happened? What is it that he's seen? And all his experiences of dealing with this new world. And not only that, but also learning about his own shortcomings, his own problems, and how to improve himself, how to get better. And it's very beautiful to observe that as we move along from Astral City into the 12 other books, we can observe how he has improved himself. They are first-hand accounts of what is it that he's observing, what is it that he's learning while he accompanies different mentors, different friends in different tasks. Some of them in the spiritual world and some of them among ourselves, among the incarnated spirits. It's as I said, it's very beautiful. It's very awakening, because it provides us with a glimpse of what the spiritual world looks on the other side. And also we can see André's own moral transformation, its self-improvement. And that is very inspiring and very enlightening. Now, as I said, this is very beautiful work that he has undertaken. But because I could not speak about all the books, I'm going to speak about one particular book. For those of us who are familiar with the concept of series on Netflix and similar ones, let's just accept that I'm going to talk about season 5, which is In the Greater World. It's the 5th book of André Luiz, which was published in 1947. Now, in this book, André Luiz is accompanying an assistant called Calderaro. Now, Calderaro works as a sort of a spiritual psychiatrist. And clearly, this book focuses about issues associated with mental disturbances and see them through a spirit perspective. I wanted to be bringing this book up as an example because many of the issues that I studied in this book were a taboo back in 1940s, and unfortunately, they are still a taboo today. And mental health, mental well-being is something that we really need to have a better understanding, not only from our perspective of nowadays, of a mental perspective, but also from a spiritual perspective as well. What is it that really causes it? And how can we treat it? And through the book, we are going to be talking about several different topics, and among them, stress. I'm sorry, I'm moving this faster than I should. We're talking about stress, depression, guilt. We talk about the causes behind epilepsy or schizophrenia. We talk about sexual traumas and what is it that it really means. But also talks about the importance of love and the consequences of hate. The preface of the book was actually given by Emmanuel, which we just heard about, and it does set the tone to what the book is all about. So first of all, it's the fact that most of us, if not all of us, are still quite enslaved by our own instincts, by our own weaknesses. And the fact that we moved from this plane into the other one does not mean that any one of us is going to become an angel. Every problem that we bring among ourselves while incarnated, they're going to stay there when we move to the other side. The book treats about lots of very beautiful aspects, but I thought I was going to focus in here on a couple of them, which I thought was most interesting for us to be discussing today. The first one is the fact that for those of us who have studied the previous books before, the previous seasons before In the Great World, we can observe that in most of the work that is undertaken by the spiritual mentors, they have to be planned. There are conditions and circumstances that can be determined, and therefore there's lots of planning that goes into them. What we see in the type of work that Calderaro undertakes is that those circumstances associated with what he calls moral disasters or moral emergencies, these are very unforeseen circumstances. They are as unforeseen as manifestation of life itself. So issues associated with cases of madness, cases of suicide, extreme moral disasters, they cannot be foreseen. And therefore, the role of the spiritual mentors helping us, it's much more of an emergency first aid or a continuous observation and monitoring. The second thing that is very interesting that this book approaches is the fact that they believe that madness and the mental instability that we observe within men and women, it's actually a consequence of the mental instability observing society itself. And the cause being the fact that our brains have evolved, but our hearts are still quite immature. And it's so beautiful to understand the fact that despite the fact that this book was written in the 1940s, this issue is as true today as it was back then. The fast pace of our society, the stress, what does it really cause us? All this instability that we have, it undermines subtly, but it undermines ourselves. André Luiz also explains how the mind plays its role when it comes to this. And it speaks of how, from a very spiritual perspective, issues such as wickedness or rebelliousness or even despair are nothing more than just consequences of that unbalance. They are just insanity, ignorance, or maybe just disease, a mental disease, a moral disease. And therefore, everything can be traced back to how we feel and how we think. When studying the mind, André Luiz and Calderaro try to explain it, and it's a very tricky one, but they do try to explain in the easier way possible how the mind can be defined. And Calderaro gave a very interesting example of seeing the mind as a 3-story castle, in where we would have on the basement is the residence of our automatic impulses. So basically, the summary of the work of everything that we have accomplished, not only on this life, but every other previous existence before this life. And then on the second level is the lounge, is where we live. This is our current acquisitions, is where all the qualities that we are building are being developed, are being consolidated. That's where we spend most of our time. And then finally, there's the loft. And in the loft is the home of the superior concepts, is where the higher qualities that we must attain are stored and kept. So if we think about it this way, it invites us to try to think and analyze, where is it that I spend most of my time? Do I spend most of my time in our lounge? Do I spend most of my time in the basement, going through all the automatic impulses that are within me? And how often do I visit my loft? Therefore, it explains as well how the fact that we within ourselves, within our minds, be it on the spirit, on the perispirit, or our brain, our physical brain, how we have within ourselves everything that we need concerning our own past, our present self, and also what is it that we are going to be in the future. Now, the mind is forced to be constantly improving. That's what it does. It's its natural role is to be constantly improving, and therefore for that it's constantly choosing, rejecting or accepting information. It's always looking to illuminate itself, or also to be putting within ourselves habits that we are creating. And so again, invites us to be thinking and considering, what is it that I'm feeding my mind? How is it that how is my intellect rejecting or accepting this information? Because we learn from here that whatever is it that I'm observing and I am assimilating is going to be true not only on this life, but it's going to be kept on my basement. It's going to be truth on my new existences whenever I leave this body and on my new life as well. So it's a good opportunity for self-reflection and to be thinking of, what is it I'm thinking and how am I taking it forward? Now, as Karen beautifully explained on the beginning of the lecture today, we know that our minds, they affect our bodies. They can truly affect how a physical body behaves. But what we see here on the greater world is that not only affects our physical body, but it also affects very subtly our perispiritual body as well. And because it affects our perispiritual body, the issues that we have in this life are going to be consequences on our perispirit, on our new existences. And therefore, those are the basic concepts in which André Luiz, on the fewer chapters that come after, explains and uses as an example the causes between all the diseases that he and Calderaro are treating with the help of many other spiritual mentors. Now, I don't really have much time to go through the entire book, but I thought I was going to close this presentation before I get called off because I'm talking too much. Just summarizing the last chapter of this book. Because in the last chapter of this book, something very beautiful happens, which I won't spoil for you. I really would like you to go ahead and really read this book. But what we learn from André's experience is that he himself observes that sometimes knowledge and intellectual knowledge can only do so much. And what we can really do to reach down and get to the root, the deeper root of the causes behind our mental issues is love. And as Calderaro explained to André Luiz, the reasoning sometimes they could not help is because they could not see the people they were helping with what he says is the sublime sentiment, the sublime love that they need to be giving those people. And towards the end of the book, André has the experience of meeting a very important person for him. And because he met this person, what he learns is that, putting in his own words, he understands that despite the extensive material that he gathered, despite the several experiences, the patients that he could treat, the way that he learned about different diseases and the causes beneath it, among all that information, what he really found is that once he found a patient who had really shifted his burning intellectual curiosity towards a more loving sentiment, what he really learned is that in order for us to be gaining wisdom, true wisdom, love is totally and completely essential, not only to ourselves, but also towards others. And that's all that I'm going to be presenting today. So thank you very much for your time. And I really hope that you give this author your time of the day and give this book an opportunity as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natasha, for that wonderful talk. It's always good to hear about André Luiz. The books are so fascinating. So I'll put you backstage and we'll bring you back a little bit later for the round table. So I'd like to, before we go to the next talk, just say a very big thank you to everyone who's been sharing the post for this event on Facebook and on Instagram, on all the people who've been starting to follow us on those platforms as well. Thank you. It's been a great increase in the past couple of days only. So thank you. No, we love having people following us and sharing our posts and taking part in all of our activities. So we are now coming up to the 7th of our 8 talks. And, oh, yeah, lots of comments coming in. Well done, Natasha. So we're coming up to the 7th of our 8 talks, which is now going to be about... this is going to be with Edir Paixão from Fortaleza in Ceará in Brazil. Let's bring on Edir. There we go.
Hello.
Now, Edir is a law graduate with a master's in public health. He is a military firefighter, suicidologist, professor, writer, and speaker. He is a member of the Spiritist Center Irmão Leite in Fortaleza and is a volunteer at the Nossolar Spiritist Mental Hospital. And so today, Edir will be talking about Camilo Cândido Botelho, a writer who brought us a very important book from the spiritual plane. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is Edir. Edir, over to you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Adam. Can you listen to me? Can you see my image? Is okay? Is it okay?
Yep, absolutely fine.
Fine. Can I start? We have here the opportunity to talk about a very important writer, spirit, and his book named Memoirs of a Suicide, which is a bestseller mainly in Brazil. We can see that the main character of the book is believed to be a famous Portuguese writer named Camilo Ferreira Botelho Castelo Branco, a poet, a playwright, novelist, and a historian. Born in Lisbon, Portugal, on March 16, at the year 1825, and died, unfortunately, by suicide with a firearm shot on June 1st, 1890, at the age of 65 years old. The book, Memoirs of a Suicide, is very known in Brazil, mainly, but we can find it available in the Amazon website in Portuguese and in English translations. The book started to be psychographed in the year of 1926 in Rio de Janeiro by the young medium named Ivone do Amaral Pereira, who is not coincidentally a person who dealt with suicidal ideas. Yeah, and he has many other books psychographed where we can find a story of many spirits involved in circumstances of fighting and preventing suicide. The book was only published in the year of 1954, probably because of the Second World War, who caused disturbance not only in the material world, but also in the spiritual world, mainly in the spiritual world. We can see, researching that, there were three spirits, three mentors involved in the production of this book, Memoirs of Suicide. Their names are Charles, who is a kind of spiritual father for Ivone do Amaral Pereira, the Brazilian medium from Rio de Janeiro. Bezerra de Menezes, a very famous spirit, and Leon Denis, also another very famous spirit for Spiritism. Yeah, and we can see for this support that is a very important book. Okay, going back to Camilo Castelo Branco, the Portuguese writer, we can say that he was the first Portuguese writer to do a living only writing. Because of that, he has become very famous. He has written many books, and also worked in newspaper. Going on, we can see in the book Memoirs of Suicide that the main character, Camilo Botelho, a pseudonym, that he died also because a shot, of a firearm, and because he became blind. Yeah, so we can have this same points about the main character of the book and about the Portuguese writer Camilo Castelo Branco. Yeah, because of that, we strong believe that they were the same spirit. And we can also find extra information. In the book Memoirs of Suicide, Camilo Botelho has a very romantic, dramatic, impulsive behavior. And when we went to research about the life of Camilo Ferreira Castelo Branco, the personality was almost the same. One of the most famous books of Camilo Castelo Branco during his life in Portugal was Perdition Love, and it gives us an idea about this impulsiveness, romances, and material desires, yeah, mainly between men and women. Going on, in the book Memoirs of a Suicide, the spirit narrates his shocking entrance in the spiritual world, where he describes, specifically that his spirit after the suicide was connected to his physical material body, feeling, the trauma of decomposition. Afterwards, he sees himself on an inferior spiritual zone named the Valley of the Suicides, where he suffers many things that can be compared to a hell. Yeah, but the main message of the book, in my point of view, is that there is no eternal hell. We can see ourselves in places, in situations, in moments that we can say, oh, I'm living a hell. I'm living on a hell. But the book, the psychography, is going to tells us that there is no eternal hell. And the spirit of Camilo Botelho is rescued to a hospital where he can have the treatment by spiritual doctors. He recovers, and afterwards he goes to a university to prepare himself for a new reincarnation. According to the book, the only way to recover the peace of mind, the spiritual peace, is reincarnating. Yeah, and we know, studying the codification by Allan Kardec, that reincarnation is a must for all of us. Camilo hesitates a lot to reincarnate. It is narrated in the book, and he passes kind of about 50 years preparing, to reincarnate, because he wants to be sure that he will not fail once more. Because of suicide, he will have to face once more blindness. The cause of how could I say, the trigger of his suicide desire in the book Memoirs of Suicide, and the same trigger of suicide for Camilo Castelo Branco was the blindness. And during the university studies, he had a life path therapy in the spiritual world. Interesting thing, there he discovered he had blinded an enemy in a past life. And because of that, he chooses again to live a future life where he will be blind, and that he has to, to face it and to win against the blindness. By the end of the book, Memoirs of Suicide, he narrates that it's not easy to believe in history, in his history, but he invites the readers not to risk entering the spiritual world by the means of suicide. His message is a message of hope, a message in the eternal life, and that we can overcome everything. There is a sentence, a phrase that he writes in the book that is remarkable for me, which is, learn once and for all that you are immortal, and that will not be through suicide that any person will ever find the harbor of true happiness. I think this phrase this teaching is very, very strong for all of us. To end my talk here, I would like to say that currently, in our year of 2022, suicide remains a serious health problem in the whole world, and we have more people dying by suicide than dying by homicide, by war, by HIV. We have about 700,000 people dying every year in the world by suicide, and we need to fight against it. The book tells us that spirituality is a protective factor against suicide. And when we go to research in the World Health Organization, we can find that religion and spirituality are commonly protective factors against suicide. So we can see accordance, between the World Health Organization scientific affirmations and the book, counseling. I would like to end here saying that a person who wants to die by suicide, in fact, doesn't want to kill him or herself. The person who has suicidal ideas wants to kill pain, wants to kill a suffering, wants to overcome this. And we know that suffering is going to pass. So the mainly kind of thought a person in suicidal crisis is going to show is ambivalence, oscillation between wishing to live and wishing to die, because in fact this person wants to kill the pain. So if you know someone who is living this, offer support, try to ask for professional help, and if you know friends and family who can support this person, try to connect people. Connection is a very strong strategy against suicide. I thank you, Adam. I thank you all of the people who are here. I would like to send a big hug to my friend Gilberto, who is in São Paulo, accompanying us. And I'm here for the round table. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Edir. And I just want to say thank you as well for all the work that you do campaigning for suicide prevention as well. It's a huge amount that you do. I know you don't always share everything that you do, but it is, ladies and gentlemen, it is a lot. So thank you. And thank you for being with us today. I'll send you backstage now and bring you back in a moment for our round table. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the next talk, just to give a couple of little reminders. So, here at Kardec Group, because a few people were asking about how to study Spiritism, here at Kardec Group, we do run 2 study groups that anyone from around the world can take part in, which is the Spiritist Society of Windsor and Maidenhead, which takes place on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. here in the UK, and we also have the Spiritist Society of Bicester, which that meets on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 p.m. here in the UK, and you can always contact us. Wrong slide. Nope. I'll find the right slide in just a moment. You can always contact us at www.kardec.org.uk. Right, so before we carry on, we wanted to talk about our other fundraising campaign. Now, this campaign was officially launched last year during SPIRITISMx 2021, and this is the Joanna G. Ângelis Translation Project. This is an official campaign on behalf of AMI Brazil, which is the Spiritist Medical Association of Brazil, Mansão do Caminho, which is the Spiritist Center where Divaldo Franco works, the organization which also runs the Caminho de Redenção Spiritist Center, which is where Divaldo gives his lectures, as well as Editorial, which is the company that publishes the books by Joanna G. Ângelis. So we want to ask people to please come and donate towards the new English editions of the psychological series by Joanna G. Ângelis and a few other books related to the series to help bring her teachings to thousands of people around the world. As I said, this is an official campaign which was launched last year, and thanks to the amazing and generous people from around the world who have already been donating to the campaign, the first book is already in progress. We're already in production of the first book. Watch out for our social media accounts for news updates about that. And we have a professional team working on this. Why professional team? Well, you wouldn't want to get your root canal treatment done by your friend who's a builder. So it's the same thing with translations. We know that there are many people who work with Spiritist translations around the world, but the quality isn't always as expected. So this is an important thing. Again, it's a campaign on behalf of AMI Brazil, Mansão do Caminho, Caminho da Redenção, and Editorial. And all you need to do is, go to our website, which is www.kardec.org.uk/Joanna, and that's Joanna. Some people have spelled it with one A and then gone, oh, it doesn't work. It's with 2 N's. And we do appreciate every single bit of donation towards this. It's a huge, huge project. Many people don't understand the costs involved in professional translations. It's a huge project. So please, please, please come and help support this campaign. On the website itself, you can find posters like the one we've got now in English and in Portuguese, as well as the donation form. And it's really easy. We can accept donations from anywhere in the world by card or by PayPal. If you're in Brazil, you can perhaps use Mercado Livre as well. Pago Livre, or whatever it's called, is the payment system through Mercado Livre. You can send us a one-off donation or an automatic monthly donation, and any amount will do. And again, just like with our High Five campaign, which supports our really good friend Florencio Anton and Grupo Spiritist, whatever is sent to this campaign will only go to this campaign, and 100% of the proceeds go to the campaign. We don't keep anything for it. It only gets used for the campaign itself. And we have some exciting news about this campaign itself. Ta-da! 15% of the funding has been received already. So we are covering 16 books, ladies and gentlemen, and we've already received a huge support from many people and organizations around the world who want to help with this. So please, 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 if you want to join that number of people who are supporting this campaign, just head over to www.kardec.org.uk/Joanna and find out more. And again, anything that can help will be really beneficial for us. And again, just a reminder, we also have our High Five campaign, if I can find the slides for that, which helps Grupo Spiritist. I know I'm wanting to talk about one campaign, but I need to talk about the other one because our good friend Florencio is online with us right now as well. And again, this one helps all these wonderful kids, this wonderful community in Mussurunga in Salvador Bahia. And again, for this one, just go to kardec.org.uk/high five. In fact, all you need to do is just go to www.kardec.org.uk/donation or donate. There you go. And you will also have the chance of getting any donations we receive today. Your name will go into winning a bundle of Spiritist books. So to support either of these campaigns, the Joanna G. Ângelis Translation Project or the High Five campaign, just go to www.kardec.org.uk/donate, choose the campaign, and anything you give will be so appreciated right now. Okay, enough of me. We now need to go to the last talk of our event. So the 8th and last talk is going to be with Anne Sinclair. Let's bring her on.
Hello.
So hello, Anne.
Can you hear me, Adam?
Yes, we can hear you okay, yes. So
Fantastic.
Anne was having a couple of issues with her microphone earlier, but that seems absolutely fine. So Anne Sinclair is from Hemel Hempstead in the UK, and Anne has been studying and working with Spiritism for over 30 years, as well as giving lectures, and has been involved in interpreting the talks of many Brazilian speakers, including our good friend Givaldo Franco, whenever he has been in and around the UK. Anne is also one of my co-hosts on the Insightfully Speaking podcast. And today, Anne will be talking about the spirit we've just mentioned, this wonderful set of books, Joanna G. Ângelis, who brought those books that can help bridge psychology and spirituality. So, ladies and gentlemen, I leave you now with Anne for the last talk of the event today. Anne, over to you.
Thank you, Adam. And greetings to everybody, wherever you are, whatever the time of the day. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here to talk about Joanna G. Ângelis today. Such a great spirit. And I was just thinking the word Joanna G. Ângelis, maybe in English would be Joanne of Angels. But that is the name that she has given for us to use. This is a spirit that presented to the medium Givaldo Franco many years ago, saying that they would do some work together. And when he asked her what name did she have, she said, "Call me a friend." And she has a message also in the Gospel according to Spiritism where she signs a spirit friend. So she's not particularly attached to names and things like that, but because we are still here on earth and we feel still quite attached to that kind of thing, Givaldo says, well, I really need a name. And she first gave her name Joanna, and then he thought that name was not long enough, perhaps, or grand enough. And so then it passed to Joanna de Ângelis. So that is how we refer to this spirit who has been a spirit friend to so many of us over the centuries. I first heard her name back in the late 1980s when I started doing the work of translating, interpreting the lectures in London and the UK, when Divaldo came over. And that's when he started also receiving these books, these messages that form what we call now the psychological collection. And I just, this is well known to everybody that since those days I went collecting these books, but I would dip into them and read them, and they really didn't resonate at that time with me. So nothing like time nowadays. They are a rich source for all my reflections and studies. But when I first met the books, they didn't really resonate. So that's my first message, is that if you read a book and it doesn't really resonate with you immediately, don't put it in the bin, put it in the drawer and pick it up later. When the time is ripe, then it will flourish. Just thinking about the spiritual energy Ângelis, and Adam showed there an image which comes across as a nun. I wanted to address that. So Joanna tells us that she had an incarnation at the time in which Jesus was incarnate on earth, when he was living, of course, by the Sea of Galilee. And she met him, and this encounter with Jesus changed her life forever. Not her life of that incarnation, but her life forever, her spiritual life. And since then, she has been committed to trying to bring the teachings of Jesus to all those who are dear to her, to any of those who are keen to hear. Now, in the past, the teachings of Jesus have been caught up in the church, in the Christian churches of different denominations. So the spirit that presents as Joanna de Ângelis, she did have several incarnations as a nun in different churches, in different places on the planet at different times. And that's why a lot of people, when they refer to her or see her and spiritually, they see this image of a nun, because that is representing some of her incarnations. But when I think of Joanna de Ângelis, personally, as I don't have reference to nunneries and that kind of imagery, I perceive her as a very, very bright and loving light. And so I just wanted to bring that in, because the image of a nun might not be attractive to some people. It might put some people off, but also because you're thinking, what has a nun got to do with psychology? Which is interesting. So when Joanna is telling us, that she has committed her life to the teachings of Jesus, the main teaching of Jesus is about the law of love of God, of love of your brothers and sisters, and of love of yourself. She is particularly trying to help us to develop our self-love, because she says we cannot love others unless we learn to love ourselves. But how can we love ourselves when we don't even know ourselves? So we know that in the Spirit's book, the Spirit suggests self-knowledge as the pathway for our progression. And they also tell us that Jesus is our model, our guide. So we really need to divorce Jesus from all the established churches and put him in the position of that Spirit of light who came to be with us to teach us about the law of love. And he taught us about that law of love through his own experience, through his teachings at that time, which persist until today. So in fact, love is very recent in our evolution, if you like. So we're still learning how do we get to learn to love. So Joanna de Ângelis, she is interested in bringing to us the idea of love. And she uses Jesus as a reference often in her books. So I'm introducing that as an idea, because if you are not a Christian, or if you don't connect with the image of Jesus, just think about it as a teacher who's come to bring us ideas about love, ideas about the law of love, and how we fit into that. So when you look at her books, when you read them, even the psychological books, she does use Jesus as a reference of the level that we can achieve while we are here. Joanna is very loving, but she's never over sentimental. She has a very clear and objective mind, and she is not afraid to just say things as they are and to go straight to the point, which sometimes can be quite surprising, because for some people, spiritual studies are all about something quite fluffy. So she is not your fluffy person. She is quite direct, she is quite observant, and she quite often holds up a mirror in front of us to tell us, have a look, what do you see? Because what do we see means, well, how do others see us, and what do we need to do to get to know ourselves better? She has great compassion, and when we struggle and we fail and we pick ourselves up and we fail again, here we are. And she says something quite loving, I think. And she says, don't forget that you are incarnate. Being incarnate is like being immersed in a big fog. When we are pure spirits, when we are outside of our body, we can see things much more clearly. But when we come into the body, into the world of materiality, into our physicality, all those emanations from nature and from our physicality and our body make our vision confused. The needs of the body confuse the ideas we had when we were coming in. So we walk around like somebody who's in the mist, somebody who's in the fog. And then if we can raise ourselves up for a moment, then we can have a view again and then come back in, okay, that's the direction I need to go. So she says, we know how difficult it is to be on earth. We've been there ourselves, she says. So putting herself at the same level of all of us. She said, when we come into an incarnation, we get confused. We are in the fog. Let us not be upset by that. It's the opportunity we have of testing whether those changes, whether those spiritual acquisitions are really within us or were they only on the surface. I'd like to talk a little bit here about a message that she brought here. So Adam well introduced that there are 16 books on the psychological collection. They are all available in English, but there's a project going on to retranslate them just to improve the accuracy. But if I take this book here, Jesus in Our Days, so again, using the image of Jesus, so let's say, let that not put you off. It might be that you actually love Jesus and it's a great attraction to you, but if it's not, don't let that distract you from her message. So this book here, it's the first book of the collection. It has 20 messages, and it goes like Jesus and challenges, Jesus and duty, Jesus and rest. So it's all Jesus and something, Jesus and suffering. And I chose from the message that says Jesus and courage, because I was attracted to it. And I've just want to take a couple of paragraphs from the middle of the message. And it says, she suggests to us, says, lean on him. In times of troubles or otherwise, seek him out. In moments of harrowing doubt or persecution, consider how would he handle the situation and act according to your conscience. Serenely ponder on Jesus' courage and follow his example. Have the courage to live. Do not hide or bury your situation under excuses and lies. Analyze yourself under the light of his teachings and break the shackles that bind you to fear, uncertainty, instability, and mental and physical suffering. Trust in victory, confront your limitations and worries in a serene way. Do not evade your responsibilities. At each failure, learn how not to repeat it without becoming depressed or remorseful. Experience is the summary of the attempts that have brought both positive and negative results. Do not unnecessarily fear people by granting them superiority and worth that they clearly do not have. Respect everyone's achievements and consider using their examples as your own motivation so that you too may one day be as successful. Give yourself the right to be human and make it your duty to keep growing without holding back at your current level. Always act with optimism, for fear is an atrocious enemy that decimates lives by the millions. Courage is an achievement much different from recklessness. While courageous people wait, believe, and then act at the appropriate time, whereas reckless people act hastily, heartlessly, and irresponsibly. Use Jesus' course as an example for your life and calmly press on. So if you were to be studying this particular chapter, we're thinking about these books of the psychological collection. These are not books to read like from cover to cover. These are elements for our study. And if we can study in a group, it's even better. So we might pick up something from here, and then we might pick up something from a different book and something from a different book and bring them together. Because it's almost like if she is bringing us information that is not for us to study in a linear way, but to embody from our heart. So when she says something like, for example, here, do not hide or bury your situation under excuses and lies, she is introducing the idea of different masks, of different psychological ways of escaping from our responsibilities, from the truth, using, she calls it excuses and lies, but there are different psychological subterfuges. So then when we go on to different books, she then goes deeper into what are the different psychological subterfuges that we might use and how to unpeel them and how to go discovering in ourselves the things that we are unaware of that we are doing. She talks about our unconscious being like a big ocean and our conscious being like a little, I forgot what the name is, like a little thing floating on this massive ocean. So what motivates us, what moves us, is all coming from the unconscious, greatly, mostly. And we have no clue what's there. So we need to start to get to know ourselves, what goes there. So at the moment when Jesus teaches us, when we point at the defect of another, which is very small, we are not even seeing this massive defect in ourselves. Talking about projection and how what we see in others is the problem that we carry within. And that's why we are seeing it out there. Saying, how can we love others if we don't love ourselves? Why don't we love ourselves? What's wrong with ourselves? Why don't we accept ourselves? Why are we always trying to hide from ourselves without, feelings of guilt or remorse from past lives? She just brings it all out and she says, we all make mistakes. That's our humanity. Do not think that you're better than that. You too make mistakes. And just that helps us to bring with humility to that level that, okay, we are all the same. And she says, imagine even the disciples for Jesus, these people that he invited to be next to him, they all made mistakes. It's part of our human condition. But it's what we do about the mistakes and how we deal with it and whether we use it for our progression, our improvement, which makes a difference, or whether we hide it under the carpet and pretend it wasn't us and accuse others instead. So Joanna de Ângelis, she brings all these psychological discussions into, and she says to us, said through Divaldo, that she studied for many, many years in the spiritual world with psychologists and psychiatrists to try to understand their language, to try to understand what they were saying, and to build this bridge with the spiritual, with the information that we are eternal spirits, that we have reincarnation, that we are on a pathway of progression, and that it is the law of love that has been brought to awaken us since 2,000 years ago, that is the way forward for all of us. So Joanna de Ângelis, she is quite extraordinary. And like I say, she is not afraid. She just goes to the point, and sometimes she can be quite sort of confronting, but she does it almost like in a way, I see it like, a parent to a small child saying, you need to own up to what you've done, but not to be chastised or punished or persecuted, but to understand that if you make that mistake, your brother, your sister, everybody else is also potentially going to make a mistake. So we are all in the same boat, and that we only can progress if we all really help one another. If we find each one of us, in our brothers and sisters, that true cosmic family, and stop being separated from one another, but find, that unity of bringing us together. So those are some just of the ideas I wanted to bring to you about the spirit Joanna de Ângelis. I think that she, to study her psychological collection, I mean, she does other work also of consolation and other messages, but I wanted today to particularly talk about her psychological collection. And if you're able to set up a group or study in a group, I think that is how it's easiest to try and to unravel and unpick what she brings in. Sometimes in so few words, she brings so much meaning and such depth. So we are hoping that I have brought you some idea of what you might find in the psychological collection. And I hope that wherever you are, you might find the way to study face-to-face or online or form a group and have a look and say, okay, how can this help me to understand my condition as a human being, incarnate on earth, but part of a greater human family? And then, you know, just thinking whatever's happening in the world today, whatever's happening in my family today, whatever's happening in my heart today, is all okay. It's all part. And in everything, there is a lesson to be learned, because as our life is eternal, our body lasts how long it lasts. We go back to the spiritual world, we take our time, and then we come back for another experience. And that is how we go progressing little by little. So there is no rush, but also there's no reason to delay our work of awakening, of discovering who we truly are and what our place is in the universe. I wonder if you want, Joanna de Ângelis would be happy to invite you to be part of the studies that she is bringing all around the world, hoping that it might be of use to each one of us in this moment. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so very much, Anne. Oh, we have a bit of an echo there. Thank you so much for that. Wonderful, always to hear about Joanna de Ângelis. I'll put you backstage for another few minutes and bring you back for the roundtable soon. And Anne was mentioning, yes, about study groups. There are actually a couple of study groups for the various books we've been talking about today. So anyone interested in learning more about the André Luiz series, please contact us here at Kardec Group. So just www.kardec.org.uk. And also there is actually going to be an English study of the works of Joanna de Ângelis coming up very soon, which we will share on our social media pages within the next couple of days. And this is obviously thanks to projects like the new translations that we're working on. And just to pick up on that, we have Shisara watching with us online. And Shisara, you're absolutely right. We need to be very thankful for all the translations done so far for all languages. Obviously, the project that we're helping with right now, it's because we have the opportunity to raise funds for new professional translations. And yes, Anna Blackwell and Janet Duncan themselves are two important British ladies who worked so hard. Janet Duncan was the first person to fully translate the Gospel According to Spiritism. Anna Blackwell translated the Spirits book, the Mediums book, started to work on Heaven and Hell, started to work on some other books, the What is Spiritism booklet as well. But obviously, we're in a day and age where, you know, we can afford to get a bit of money and pay for these professional resources. So again, we don't want to discredit anything that's been done so far, but we have the opportunities to take things that a bit further. Like Anne said, there are a couple of little things that need to be corrected here and there, and that's what these projects are all about. So before I just want to say thank you to all our 8 speakers so far. It's been wonderful having all those 8 talks. We still have our round table coming up in a few minutes, but before that, I just want to remind everyone about entering our prize draw. So if you want to win a bundle of Spiritist books, your choice of which books you want, send us a donation during the event. You've only got a few minutes left, to be perfectly honest. So just go to www.kardec.org.uk. You can donate to our High Five campaign. You can donate to the Joanna campaign. Either one, any amount. You've got a few minutes left to be able to do this, and then the names will be entered into the prize draw. Now, we will be bringing the guests back for a few minutes for the round table, where they will reflect just a little bit more about these fantastic talks that they've brought to us today. And so now is also your opportunity to send us any questions you have for them. So please enter them. Wrong side, that side. Enter them on the side for the live chat if you're on YouTube, or enter them below on the comments section if you're on Facebook. We're not going to accept comments via any other medium today, just that way. Send them through in the next few minutes so we can ask our lecturers your talk. Sorry, it's it's that time of day already. We'll ask your questions to our wonderful speakers if you send them through via the comments and chat section. And before that, we are going to have a little musical interlude, like we said. And this will be just under 10 minutes long, so it's enough time to just stretch your legs, maybe get yourself a glass of water if you need to. And the music today has been provided by our very good friend, the Brazilian pianist and composer, Deborah Levy, who supported us a couple of years ago as well. Now, the two pieces of music we're going to play are called Raiz Espiritual, Spiritual Root, and Il Sou, I Am. And these two tracks are being released together, joined by a bridge. And Raiz Espiritual is the first one, which is a solo piece, and Il Sou is a trio piece, where Deborah improvises on electric piano and synthesizer, accompanied by Jefferson Orta on bass and Luizinho Sobral on drums. So please, sit back and relax for the next few minutes, and make sure you enter the prize draw and send us your questions for the round table. We'll see you in just under 10 minutes. Well, we hope that you liked that little musical interlude from our friend Deborah Levy. And again, you can follow her on Instagram at Deborah Levy Official, Facebook Deborah Levy Music. And again, that was Raiz Espiritual, and also by Deborah Levy on piano and keyboard, Jefferson Orta on bass, and Luizinho Sobral on drums. Thank you, Deborah, for letting us play that today. Right, so we want to, and just to just tell you that you can also follow all her music on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. So please go and follow her channels. Great music all the time. So, time for our prize draw. Unfortunately, we've had a little technical hiccup. So we're not able to run the random picker straight away, and unfortunately it looks like many people who tried to give a donation didn't actually finalize the donation, so we can't enter your names. I'm so very, very, very sorry. There's quite a few people who tried to give donations during the event, but you didn't finalize it. So that does mean we only had 2 valid entries during the event. So we're going to award both people with a bundle of books. So congratulations to Jennifer to Jennifer DR and Sandra SJ. I'm not going to say your surnames, but you know who you are. So Jennifer and Sandra, congratulations. We will contact you because we have your contact details now, and we'll find a way to get you a collection of books of your choosing. So again, Jennifer and Sandra, congratulations. You are the people who gave us valid donations during the event, and so we will send you a bundle of Spiritist books for you to enjoy whenever you can. Okay, so we can skip that now because, like I said, we had a little technical issue as well. So before our round table, we just want to share a couple of other bits of news with you. We do have a couple of events coming up which you might like to come and try to attend next year. So in February, we will be having our very good friend Florenzo Anton, the medium from Bahia, from Mussurunga. Now, he's the one who we support his group through the High Five campaign. He will be in the UK giving a number of to do a number of presentations for fundraising events. As part of his tour, Florenzo will be with Kardec Group, providing a mediumistic painting demonstration, as well as leading a mediumship workshop within the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, and this will be on Friday the 10th of February. This is in February. I forgot to put the month in there, but it's in February next year, so not that far now, ladies and gentlemen. This will be somewhere within the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead, so not too far from London. Again, Friday the 10th will be a painting demonstration, and Saturday the 11th will be a mediumship workshop. These events are open for anyone. And then on Sunday the 12th, within Oxfordshire, we will be having a painting demonstration as well. And these are fundraising events, and all proceeds will go to support the social work by Florenzo and his team at Grupo Espírita Sheila, who assists this wonderful community in Mussurunga in Salvador. And they are the group that we support through our High Five campaign. So please come along to the events, follow us on social media to find out more details about these, because we'll be launching the details in a couple of weeks' time. And now, ladies and gentlemen, big drum roll. Ta-da! SPIRITISMx 2023. Yes, we haven't even finished this one, and we're going to talk about the next one. For next year, we are going to, hopefully, fingers crossed, all fingers crossed, for as many fingers as you have in your hands, we'll be having a hybrid event next year. So it'll be face-to-face with online participation. We're still planning the location. We're trying to find a really nice venue for you to all come to, and we know it's going to be a great day. It'll be a whole day, so please, make sure that you pack your bags to make sure that you're with us for the whole day. And it'll probably be a little bit earlier in the year when the weather's a little bit warmer, rather than traipsing around when, well, it's been snowing here in the UK today. So, so again, follow us on social media so that you can find out more about these events. Or even go to our website, so www.kardec.org.uk. As soon as we have information, it will go there. You can also email us, office@kardec.org.uk. And you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look for Kardec Group or follow Kardec Group, one word. So again, Florenzo Anton and SPIRITISMx 2023 coming up in not that long now. Right, enough of me. It's time for our round table. So we're going to bring back all of our guests. So let's just make sure that all of them have their cameras on. Hint, hint. Everyone, please put your cameras on. Thank you. Right, so let's bring them all back. In no particular order. Here we go. So Ingo, Karen, Sonia, Edir, Humberto, and Natasha. Right. Well, thank you all for your very wonderful and insightful talks today. Now, there's a bit of background noise from one or two of you. Perhaps it's good for you to mute your microphones when you're not talking. So we wanted to just go around you all and just see what reflections you had of each other's talks, and if you have any questions for each other. Anyone like to offer to go first? Anne, thank you. It was me thinking that democracy probably would not work today, but it does.
Oh, no, I just because I was the last one to speak and I listened to everybody's talks, I was just amazed at the thread that went through all the talks. And each time I was hearing a talk, I was thinking, that feeds into what I'm going to say, and so on. And that I thought that was really interesting, because although I knew who the spirit author was going to be, that each one's going to talk about, didn't really know the details of how they're going to talk about them. And so I talked about Joanna, talked about a bit about Jesus, but then Ingo was reading that beautiful description of Jesus brought, by Emmanuel, and then thinking about mental health and linking in also, our mental well-being and what makes us have the courage to remain alive when our suffering and our pain is too big. I just thought it was really interesting how these themes kind of were sort of woven into all the different talks in a very subtle way. And that's my comment.
I have a question as well, but more to you, Adam, not to the other speakers.
For me?
Yeah, because it's about the translation project you have started. We in Germany, we are lacking even much more translations. There are only very few books in German language, and we always have the question, should we ask someone professional to do the translation, but who is then not a spiritist, and doesn't he have to have this spiritist knowledge in order to provide really quality translation? Because at the end, the meaning is important, right? If not, you could simply use a Google translator as well. And
Absolutely.
My question is, do you now have experience already and have some results from your professional translators? But what is your view on that?
Well, do we have time for another hour? I'm not sure. So for all our friends who may be watching with us, people may not know, so I work professionally with translation. I'm actually a translation manager, so I do know this subject quite well. And Val, who's backstage, is also a professional translator of English to Portuguese. Now, the big polemic thing is exactly that. Who should we get to do translations? We know that let's go back in time. So Allan Kardec himself spoke a couple of languages. He started translations of his books into German, as well as a few other languages. And we know that the first language to receive the books translated was German as well. We can see this looking through Revue Spirit with the catalogue that's in there. But the simple answer is yes. Professional translators are needed, and they do not necessarily need to know everything about Spiritism, but to have a good spiritualistic affinity. Why is that? Simply, professional translators, they know the tools of how to research and look up terminology. They know how to do comparisons of one phrase to another phrase, one translation to another translation. They'll use many professional tools that are required for getting this kind of work completed. Now, I'm not saying that people who are not professionals can't do a good job, because there are many people who can. They're just people who haven't necessarily had the training or certification to prove their abilities as a translator. But the other important thing is, whoever translates needs to be should really be a native speaker of the language it's going into. So far, many of the translations for many languages are not being done by native speakers. And this is true not just for English, but for other languages. We know that there are people who are speakers of other languages translating into a language which is not their native language. And again, why is that important? It's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. So when you translate something, you have to make sure that you can have an affinity with all the text that's being worked on. So the only way to do that really is to be sort of native, really, of that language, and that way you'll understand. You'll understand the target. So it's not just understanding what the original text means, but understanding the target of who it's going to make sure you're conveying the correct phrase. Because sometimes, especially with the books of Joanna, you have one psychological term which in Portuguese would be one thing. If you do a direct translation into another language, you miss the point. So you have to find a good compatible terminology. So at the end of the day, where possible, yes, I really encourage all federative groups around the world to do fundraising campaigns, to pay for translation resources, because it's worthwhile. Many people think, Spiritism, you get for free, so you give for free. Kardec did everything for free. No, he didn't do everything for free, ladies and gentlemen. He did charge for some things. No, he sold his books. The books went to fund getting other books done. The books actually went to fund translations as well. We know that Anna Blackwell got paid for her work doing her translations into English. So I think we need to go, okay, let's just step up. If we want to improve the quality, let's improve the quality. How do you improve the quality? That's the answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, this event isn't about me, but it has been about books, so it's a good question. And of course, all the books that we've been talking about today, we want to see them all in the hands of people. So thank you for that question, Ingo. But let's see if anyone else has any other question for each other. I think there's a question for Humberto here, actually just seeing here. It came in from Margot. Here we go. I have a question related to fraud and animism. How can we note that a medium can be under fraud or animism communication? So how can we understand if a medium is fraudulent?
Great point. It's possibly the greatest point in the Book of Mediums by Allan Kardec. Right in the beginning, in the first section, he wrote about, or he raised the question, are there spirits? Because if we don't have persuasive and very strong evidence that other personalities and other intelligences are acting through mediums, then it is likely that just everything is fraud or something that we make up through imagination. So the essential part, empirical spiritism, or the scientific aspect of spiritism, is discerning which message suggests an alien intelligence, another personality communicating through the medium, and which evidence or which message suggests that the mind of the medium may be tricking her or him, or if there is objective possibility of fraud. So he established some criteria. I think they are still among the best criteria ever considered or established by any author. And he essentially say that we have to spot information, personality traits, tone, perspective, talents, skills that could not possibly be from the medium, and that suggests this other personality. So I think this is the best method that we have still.
Yeah, and like you said before, in the medium's book, there's a lot of information about fraudulent mediumship, and for me, I really love looking at these fraudulent photos that were taken during the mid-late 1800s. They're fascinating to look at, and obviously there was polemic with the people who carried on with Revue Spirit after Allan Kardec passed away, but that's maybe for another time. Let's see. A question. So we have
Natasha raised her hand.
I did. I raised my hand. I even did a jazz hands.
Thank you for
Humberto,
spotting that.
Humberto, can I follow up on that question and ask another question for you? Okay. Well, I'm asking this because as part of in the Greater World book, one of the chapters talks about anemic mediumship. So exactly that concept of the medium passing down information that is not really from a spirit, but knowledge that the medium have within himself and within herself from previous incarnations. And I was wondering, going back to your point, when you're reviewing something from that the medium is being transmitting, maybe it's not, you can see that it's not from that particular person, because that knowledge does not come from that existence, come from previous existences. So how can you determine from that what is really, maybe the question is, can we determine if something is fraud, or if something is coming from outside or coming from inside, but from a not our current self, but our past self?
That's a great point, because it is in fact very hard to make this distinction. That's also why I say that to a certain degree, spiritualism, and also spiritism as a branch of spiritualism, is not mainly maybe, but it is also a matter of philosophical conviction. So you choose to interpret reality in a certain way because it would make more sense interpreting it in that way than in another. And that also works for scientific data, for what evidence is telling us. The evidence is not, as in the material phenomena, so obvious that they immediately push you into a certain conclusion. And among other difficulties, the difficulty in separating animism from mediumship is one of the most intense and most prevalent among all other problems. Well, I think that's why we have to combine the criteria that Kardec especially established and see if we have new information, new personality, new skills. it is possible that you have new information without being another person, because you're accessing a part of your memory that was not available until that moment in trance state and so and so. But there's a reason why we say my past lives. It is really your personality. It is your conscience. It is essentially you, the I that the German idealists devised so well. It's the essential, untranslatable part that could never be substituted by anything else. Information is something that you can pick from elsewhere without the necessity of another intelligence communicating it to you. You could see something from a distance. You could pick it from your past. You could unconsciously have this extrasensorial perception, but you cannot fake an entire different life or personality. Anyway, we should not consider it as absolute certain, and we have to consider that there is some degree of flexibility that we have to leave for our philosophical conclusions and interpretations about reality.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts from anyone else regarding that wonderful question? Even though Humberto's already given us a wonderful answer. If not, we do have a few other questions that we can go through. So there's one for Edir. So does everyone who's suicidal, or people who commit suicide, do they go through the same experience on the spiritual plane, just like Camilo did in his book, or does it vary?
It varies a lot because it depends on the context. Our way to view things in this material world are very retributive justice. We want to think most of times that if we did something wrong, we have to pay it, in the worst way. But the justice of God is love, So it depends on the context, God is the best mathematician, So it depends on the motivations, causes related, and we can say that scientifically, suicide is multi-caused, it's multi-determined, it's plural, and it's complex, we have to change our eyes about suicide and suicidal people, because most of times here in Brazil, I have had the impression that even in the religious temples, spiritist centers, people has this taboo, they don't want to talk about this, and they face people as they are condemned, convicted. So I think it's a very important question, and I'm glad to say that no, it depends on the context, it depends on so many things, and we have to take firstly the conception that God is love, okay, and His pardon is infinite. It's so strong. That's our point of view based on our studies and on evidence, not only the evidence of science, but the empirical, the experience of mediumship communication. Okay.
Yeah. Ingo.
Yeah, I would have a further question related to Edir and the memoirs of suicide. The topic we face in Germany, or we have been facing over the last years, is very much a debate about should we allow euthanasia or not? And it always ends up with a discussion regarding, well, at the end, there's a free will, so the people should be able to decide on their own, if you like. And okay, then you have maybe the point of views from the churches before, but aspects we know about this book and the consequences, the laws of God and what's happening after death and so on. These things are, of course, not discussed at all in Germany because there is a pure materialistic debate. What is your experience? How to overcome this gap of knowledge, and therefore you cannot really discuss this in a way that people accept and take these arguments into account what we know, and that's the difficult part.
Right. My friend, let me tell you, it's really, really interesting. There is a polemic about the book, because many people read the book and they are afraid, it brings a kind of condemnation, like I have said. And many people has asked me, do you advise people to read this book? What is my answer? I think there are people who are not emotionally in conditions to read this book. Sometimes they're facing suicidal ideations. And look, this is science. There are some research that they have carried out with people who were in crisis. They would show two pictures, to the person. One who is commonly connected to positive well-being, and other was neutral. People who are in crisis, they tend to see neutral things as negative. So based on that, I think we could not advise the book to every person. It has to be free in the libraries, in the bookshops, in the libraries. Yes, okay. But when they come to ask me, I always say, if you are in psychological and emotional good conditions, you can read this book. All right. Can this book prevent suicides? In my point of view, yes, it can prevent suicides. But we have to be always really careful when we advise, when we work, when any aspects of suicide prevention. Because as I have said, it's a complex, this is complex. It's not very simple. We need professionals to work with that, and Spiritist centers or in the university or the fire department or police departments, because I work a lot on those places with public safety professionals, when they come to me, I always recommend, are you in condition? Are you emotional and psychological fine? Yes. And the message, as I have said, the message of the book is hope. There is no eternal hell. You can be rescued. You're going to have so many chances that you need, So in my point of view, it's a message of hope and love and forgiveness. All right.
That's great. Thank you. Right. We have a question now for Karen, which sort of follows on quite well from this. So, Karen, which kind of support should a person get, or can a person get, from a Spiritist group if they're going through depression?
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, that's a great question, and really following up on what you just said, Edir. As in the Spiritist group, we have volunteers who are giving their best, or to offer help to anyone who needs it, based on what we study. But in our professional life, we come from all walks of life, right? So we're not necessarily psychologists, psychiatrists, or doctors, medical doctors. So anything that the Spiritist group offers, I find important to say, is complementary to the more traditional treatment on the medical side. So letting that aside, what can you expect from a Spiritist group? It will depend a little bit on the details of the group, but I think what all groups can offer someone who's going through depression and looking for additional help is, first of all, being open to listen what the person has to say, to offer what we call the fraternal conversation, or there may be different terms for that. But to offer that conversation, to have someone who is there for you, who listens to what you have to say. And then it will depend a bit on the situation of that person and the state that they are in, what kind of advice you could give. depending on the situation, really. And further, it will also depend. Okay, if someone addresses a Spiritist group, then we could expect that they're a little bit open to the teachings that are studied there. So perhaps talking a little bit about the background of what the Spiritist teachings offer us can help the person see or look at their sufferings from a different angle. So seeing what we can recommend, be it a certain book, or be it listening to public talks that we offer in our group. So that could be very helpful. Also, yeah, just recommending some uplifting texts that someone could read at home when they wish. And then there's also something that we learned from the books from André Luiz, for example, how important the help is that we can get on a fluidic level. So he describes a lot when someone is in need of help, how the healing, the magnetic healing, can make a difference. And this is something that the Spiritist group also offers normally, healing passes, laying on of hands, that can help harmonizing our energies. And on the same level, then also the magnetized water that we can offer. So all these are several aspects of what can help someone who's in need of help. And then also perhaps what our group also offers is the vibrations that you send. Also, we have a prayer group that would pray for persons in need. So, and also there are several aspects that we could offer to someone who's in a depression, but it would also be good to hear from others, perhaps what you have, experiences you have in your groups, or perhaps something you would like to add. It's just a few thoughts from my side. Thanks.
Let's see if anyone else wants to mention. Anne, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that sometimes just connecting to a group, whether like before COVID, you'd go to a group, now you go online if you like, but just that movement of going in search of a group, even if you don't know what the group's got to offer you, is a way of breaking out of that kind of a mold that's holding you there, letting in something new, breaking out of the paralysis of when you've got to, how can I say, you're caught up in your ideas, and when you go there and you have this different environment, and we talk about like if people have spiritual healing or something, it's about breaking up this, like you say, almost like a cloud that is around us, that is holding the ideas in place and offers in the opportunity of a different light to come in, that you can start to envisage a different possibility. For example, when I'm very caught up, let's say, in a problem and I can't find a solution, all I can think about is that I can't find a solution, which doesn't really help me to find the solution. So it just like I just get caught up in those ideas. So sometimes we are caught up in a drama or of suffering or something in our life, and it's holding us. So just by transitioning into the group, online or personally, perhaps talking about what is upsetting us or causing us trouble, just opens the mind that little bit to let in that little bit of light that just dilutes things, and just you start to envisage new opportunities. It might not be that anything that is particularly said there, but it's just that the fact that, I went there, they really helped me. And actually, I say, well, we didn't do anything, but the person felt helped and felt that there's now an opportunity to see other angles of the situation. So I think just to be heard, to say, like active listening. He says, I don't have a solution for you, but I hear what you're saying. I hear your pain. I know that this is not easy. So just acknowledging that the person is going through some kind of suffering, the person feels that connection, and not trying to, you're not going to solve anybody's lives, but you are just stretching out a hand in humanity. And sometimes it's that hand on the shoulder. And I remember once I shared this this thing, and it links to what Edir said sometimes about linking. And sometimes if people are feeling very isolated, going to a group, you link with a person there, another human being that holds your hand or, comes close to you. I remember a situation many years ago here in London where there was a lady going to the underground and she was in great distress and she was crying a lot. And I saw her and I did nothing. I thought, oh my gosh, that lady, I hope she's not going to jump in front of the train because, this is London and it's busy and all these people. And then I saw another lady come up to her and literally put her hand on her shoulder and said to her, are you okay? And of course, the lady was not okay. But she said, do you want to talk? We can sit here and talk. And I just thought, oh, I wish that was me who had done that. But it wasn't. It was this other lady. And I just thought that's that humanity of just reaching out and touching and saying, are you okay? Can I help you? Do you want to talk? Just that might just do the difference. So the Spiritist group offers that opportunity of human contact, of reaching out and just for a moment. And I think that we can't also discard how much the spiritual benefactors sometimes guide that person towards a group and towards a person that might be able to help them, because we are not alone. We are never alone. As much as we think that our despair that we are completely alone, we have our spiritual guides, we have our spiritual benefactors. I call it our spiritual team, I call it, who are supporting us and trying to help us to find a way to break through. That's how I see it, just to break that mold a little bit, let in some light, just give some respite. Okay, you're okay. It's going to be okay. Don't know what the solution is going to be, but it's going to be okay. So that's what I wanted to add, yeah.
I think that's a really good point, Anne, because of the pandemic, yes, we are now having online and hybrid meetings. But now that we're coming to the tail end, more and more groups are opening up to have face-to-face meetings. And I'd like to say to anyone watching, please contact your nearest group or any group that may be within traveling distance of you. Contact them, or contact any group that can be online, because even online, I think everyone can have so much benefit in just taking part in any enlightening study. It's a good opportunity to do things. And thank you for everything that Karen said as well. All groups have this dedication towards charity. I'm pretty sure I can talk on behalf of almost all Spiritist groups. We have dedication towards charity. That's what Spiritism is all about as well. So reach out, contact a group. Contact us here at Kardec Group if you want to. They will help you to find a good group if you don't like studying with us, because anyone can study with us as well. Sorry, I had to just get that plug in. So I think we're going to have to wrap up in a few minutes, but we have a few more questions come in. Got Gilberto asking if we use psychologists, psychiatry, especially in suicidal situations. I think probably a quick answer for that is yes, most groups will recommend people to go and seek out professional support, because like Karen said, we're not all professionals in psychology, psychiatry, but when we spot that someone needs support, we never shy away. Tell people to go and get support. Pick up one of the counselling hotlines. Anything, just to have a proper person to talk to. Gosh, we've got so many other questions here. Let's see. Oh, so there's a question regarding Delanne. Do we know if there are any scientists today studying spirit phenomena? I know that it was Dan who talked about it, but does anyone here know about this kind of thing? Are there people actually studying phenomena nowadays, able to prove about phenomena, prove about reincarnation?
Well, I am studying that, and I would like to advertise our book on the subject, The Science of Life After Death. I'm a philosopher, and the two other authors are psychiatrists. So it's a very diverse perspective very broad, trying to encompass the massive variety of research done in the last 100 and so years about that subject. So there's much going on, and for researchers, it is a growing field now.
Okay, I'm just looking through all the other comments and questions coming in. There's quite a few about translations, which was not a subject for for the talks today, but they have come in. Yes, we know that there are some languages in some countries which are not written, they're only spoken languages. Of course, we have to try to find a way to adapt if ever we want to try to create content for these people. Richard mentioned that using knowledgeable spiritists for review. Absolutely. Actually, that's one of the things of our project. We actually have not just a few, but a plethora. I love that word, a plethora, a huge number of extra additional volunteers who will be looking at the translations once they're done, so that we make sure it goes through all the possible filters to get the best quality that we can. And yeah, so sometimes things go beyond just simple words. Let's see, what other questions can we go to? I think that may be it that we can go through right now, because we are actually coming up to the end of time. So let's do a little last thought from everyone. So I'll go through everyone just to get your final thoughts about the event today, your final reflections for everything that we've been talking about. So let's go through the order from the talks themselves. So, Sonia, would you like to go first? Your final reflections, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, it has been great to be here with you all. Very insightful. I learned a lot myself, and there are a couple of books which I will reread. I probably have read them before, but it's a long time ago. So it was very, very nice to listen to all of you. And I just would like to comment about one question that was in the chat about if what the spirits are saying today about as the Spiritist movement. And I don't live in Brazil, so I don't have access to so many books, but I have read some of the books psychographed through Divaldo, the planetary transition, and they are more connected to the Spiritist movement, and it looks like they tell us to be aware, to be watching out that we don't fall, into problems ourselves as spiritists. So we should always be aware and have Jesus as model for all our actions, and watch out actions we do and how we live our lives. So the spirits still today talk a lot to both spiritists and everybody else in the spiritist meetings. But first of all, thanks to all of you and to the organizers, Adam, and hope to see you again. Maybe London next time. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. Your connection was cutting a bit, but I think we were able to get the main part of what you're saying. That's absolutely fine. Thank you. So let's go to Karen now.
Sorry.
Karen, that's okay. Karen, your last reflections, please.
yeah, thanks, Adam. Picking up the thread again from what Sonia just said. So first of all, thanks a lot to you, Adam, to Val, and all the group, the Kardec Group, who've organized the event, and also to everybody who participated. So I've also learned a lot and got a lot of inspiration for further reading and authors that I haven't read for some time. So that was really, really, really helpful to put them on the stage again and in focus, because they all have so much to bring. So I'm wondering sometimes how to find the time to read them all. But then we go step by step, Annie, as you said, maybe in the next incarnation continuing. And just, yeah, with one more thought to François de Genève and his message on melancholy, I would really like to send out my best thoughts to all of you who may be experiencing this melancholy right now. And as François de Genève tells us, our challenges, our pain, they will pass. They will pass. So thank you all, and yeah, have a good evening, or good morning, or good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Humberto.
Well, we can only applaud the initiative of the group. Kardec Group has been doing so much in terms of sharing and discussing the essential message of Spiritism and modern spiritualism, from the facts and evidence to the proper religious connection with the absolute spirit and the charitable works, and so. So I hope that the communities engage more in such projects, so that they are not as isolated and as I'm trying not to use bad words and pejorative language, but I feel that many people who relate to spiritualism and spiritism nowadays a bit too shy or too passive, and in the movement of change and transformation of society. So that's my cry, and I think that we have to remain full of hope and loyal to the very high standards established by Allan Kardec and other missionaries.
Okay, thank you, Humberto. Right, let's go now to Ingo for your last considerations.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for the organization of this event. I know it's really heavy work, and my view is that this having such a big number of short presenters, but then having this discussion amongst each other and having the exchange with question and answers, this is very important. And this is really, this is spreading the information much more like having one compared to having one long lecture. So I think that the way you are doing this is wonderful, and I appreciate. When we look at the spirit authors, well, I consider them like, well, if you consider the incarnation in the earth like a big school and we are here to learn, then we see Jesus as, let's say, the teacher on the top, and all these great authors, they are all our teachers, if you like, and there's so much they are giving us. And most of the books, it's really worth to read 2 or 3 times, because you will find thoughts and information which you haven't spotted the first time. And these great teachers, every now and then they come back to us also to incarnate. My understanding is that also Emmanuel is now on another incarnation, and I'm sure it will be an incarnation with an important mission. And this is wonderful. So yeah, I can only recommend to everyone, read books, which have been brought to us by Spirit authors. And thanks again for the opportunity to be part of this.
Okay, thank you, Ingo. Right, let's go now to Natasha for her final considerations.
Well, I think I have to thank everybody again for the opportunity to be here. Every time that I'm invited to take part of these conferences, I always feel as a daunting task because I have so many more interesting talkers than I am, and so much more knowledgeable people to be talking about it, and a very daunting task to talk about André Luiz, who is such a great author. So going back to what Ingo was saying, I think that yes, if we can read, it brings so much more to our lives and so much more that we can teach. So maybe I could try to, as a final thought about André Luiz and about what we are trying to do today, I think that following the example of André Luiz, we saw him developing himself throughout the 12 books that he had published. About the life in the spiritual realm, he published more than that. But what I think that I could pick up from there is the idea how long it takes for all of us to be developing. How long does it take for all of us to be improving ourselves? And there is a message in the bottom to say we have to be patient. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to be patient with others. And we have to, because it takes time. And we are all going to get there. We are all going to be as enlightened and as elevated as all the beautiful authors that we were discussing today. We might take a little longer, or in my case, it might take a lot longer, but we will get there. And I think that that's the message that I would think we could close up. I would like to close up today is this idea of self-love, self-forgiving, and tolerance towards ourselves and towards others. Because as a humanity, we are evolving. And we can always help each other. I am seconding what Humberto was saying. There's more than we can do, not only as a spiritist, but as human beings, as members of a society. There's a lot more that we can do to ourselves, to others, to ensure that we can all go together, that we can all improve together, and we can all get there. So thank you very much again for inviting me. And thank you all the people that had joined us today and all the beautiful questions that we got.
Thank you, Natasha. Edir, over to you for your last considerations.
Oh, I would like to thank you, for the invitation. Thank you all of the speakers, the coordination of the event. I'm very happy I'm here in Salvador City, the city of Divaldo Franco. I'm very happy. And I would like to say that every time I have the chance to talk about suicide prevention, if I can do this, I will do this, because ignorance, people who don't know about what to do and what to say, and mainly how to listen to people in societal crisis, they need information. Information is so important. And we know scientifically that spirituality, religion, connection are things very, very important, for suicide prevention. So I would like to thank you, and I would like to say that I'm in love with a phrase, a sentence, in the end of the film, The List of Schindler, when the Jewish people who were rescued by Oskar Schindler, they made a ring, and it was written inside of the ring, who saves a life, save the whole world, So if you have the chance to help somebody, do it. It's worth it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, dear. And now finally, Anne.
Yes, I too want to really thank Adam, Valeria, and for organizing this event. I know how hard it is to organize these things. I'd like to really thank all my fellow presenters. I have learned so much, but also all the people who have participated through their questions, their good vibes, their comments. We need to work together because that is how we achieve the best results. So I am so pleased that I was able to be part of this today and look forward to 2023. But if I leave just a sentence that Joanna de Ângelis said to Divaldo Franco, okay, just maybe it can be a symbol for us. Say, live in such a way that you leave wherever you go footsteps of light to show the way. I just think that that is a beautiful image for me. And if I'm feeling in the darkness, I'm just looking out, where are the footsteps of light of all those brothers and sisters who've come and gone before me and who've shown the way for me. Just like that.
Thank you. So, there we go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everything you brought to us today. It's been a pleasure having you all with us today, and I'm going to all put you all backstage now. So don't disappear. If you please try to hang around, because we'll talk to you after we finish the event. But again, just let's say thank you. So let's just take you all off screen. So off you go, one by one. But stay there, stay backstage. I don't want you disappearing just yet. Right. And now, for everyone else who's still with us. Yes, that is the end of SPIRITISMx 2022. And we do hope that you've been able to enjoy it and that you're now interested in wanting to pick up a book, wanting to pick up any of these books and start to read them. You know, that's one of the objectives of our event today. We want you to go out there, get these books. Doesn't matter what language, just go and get them. And don't be discouraged if you find them difficult to read. Because these books are worthwhile. All of these. All these works, they're so rich in information. So please go out there, get the books. And if you struggle to find the books, contact us. Let us know. Just get in contact with us here at Kardec Group, www.kardec.org.uk, office@kardec.org.uk, or at Kardec Group on your favourite social media. And, you know, we're more than happy to help you find a study group, or you can come and study with us. We have our groups on Saturdays and Wednesdays. And, of course, we have our fundraising campaigns. So, you know, feel free to contact us at any time. And remember to watch out for news about our events with Florenzo Anton in February and news of SPIRITISMx 2023, which again will hopefully be a hybrid event a bit earlier next year than November, December time. And just before we finish, my little message to you all. We know that it's almost the end of the year, but please remember to carry on taking care of yourselves and your loved ones. And also remember to reach out and help friends, family, communities, and all the organizations around the world who need support right now. We know that everyone's going through tough times, but we know that everyone can help someone else, even in just a small way. It is a great time of year to pick up the phone, send a message, call someone that you haven't spoken to in a while, to invite a friend for a coffee, or just volunteer at a local soup kitchen or a charity shop, or even just declutter your wardrobe and give your clothes away. Give them to your local charity shop, Salvation Army, or any campaign which is good that you trust. Don't be shy of doing that, because many people will make use of these things. And remember to allow yourselves to smile and help others to smile as well. So thank you for being with us today, each and every one of you. And thank you to everyone who watches this after. And so it just leaves me to say, I am Adam Osborne for Kardec Group, and I wish you all the very best for this wintry season, and we hope to see you again in 2023. Bye-bye.